Thus, unless it encountered a crisis like just now, how could it possibly stop eating and laying eggs? Ling Han broke into a grin, and suddenly clenched his left hand tightly before throwing it forwards. Damn insect, you have still fallen for it. He threw out 7 tiny red dots. They were like 7 tiny red pills. Immediately, they were tossed into the air above the summit while the insect queen was absorbing energy. Its ability of absorption was shocking, and before it reacted in the slightest, those 7 tiny red pills had been sucked in. The insect queen was shocked, and released a spiritual wave. It did not know what it had eaten, but since it had been fed by Ling Han, they definitely could not be anything good. Ling Han broke into a grin and declared, "Boom!" Pang! The whole mountain immediately shook wildly. Multiple veined patterns could be seen glowing, as if something was about to burst out. What had Ling Han tossed? The heaven and earth origin stars. This was a frighteningly deadly weapon that could kill even low-tier celestial kings. Even if the outer shell of this insect queen was extremely hard, if they exploded inside its body, no matter how strong it was, so what? Its insides would definitely be blasted into bits. However, it could not be denied that the insect queen's outer shell was indeed hard. The heaven and earth origin stars had already exploded, yet still could not blast out. All of it was ferociously exploding in the insect queen's body, which showed that if they were directly thrown, the most that could be done was only severe injury, or even causing light wounds to the insect queen. Killing it was a completely impossible feat. The whole mountain was shaking madly. This was the insect queen's body. The queen was directly sustaining the great blast of 7 heaven and earth origin stars in its body. Even if its defense was shocking, so what? Boom! The summit burst out with majestic flames like the eruption of a volcano. All the insects sank into a daze in the same instant. It was like they had also suddenly lost the pillar of support for their spirits and the reason for living with the death of the insect queen. But only a short while later, these insects went berserk. Some fled outside the cave, while others continued to attack Ling Han and the others madly. Some were even slaughtering and killing their companions. This was because they had lost the insect queen that would oversee and organize them. They were completely dazed, and felt that aside from themselves, everyone and everything else was an enemy. Fight, 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 kill, 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 everything was in chaos. Ling Han met back up with the others. They all sighed in relief. Though there was still poison accumulated in their bodies, they could slowly expel this poison as long as they were given enough time. Though there were still insects attacking them, this was already the end of it. They faced them calmly, filled with confidence. But right at this moment, a change suddenly occurred. Multiple whip-like objects suddenly extended out from different corners of the mountain walls, wrapping around these insects. Some were directly ensnared, and the insects were strangled to death, but there were some that had not ensnared their targets, and were locked in intense battle with the insects. What was going on here now? Why does this look a bit like water vines? Ling Han suddenly asked. These whip-like objects were like vines in the first place. Everyone nodded, and a feeling of foreboding rose up in all of them. Since they had been forced onto this island, from the fruit fragrance of a celestial fruit that suddenly spread out to the sea of insects, all the events were seeping with strangeness, yet it seemed like they were closely linked to one another. This island had to be linked to the water vine in countless ways. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been forced here. And now, something similar had appeared, so it was inevitable that they would think that this was strange. The numbers of the sea of insects was still shocking, but their only path now was death, and their numbers could not be replenished. Hence, the rate of their decrease was actually quite fast. Mainly, it was that water vine that had ensnared too many things. Though a considerable number had also been killed by the insects, it was still the main force in the slaughter of the insects. I am sure that everyone must be feeling very confused. A voice suddenly rang out. A person had appeared in midair in the cave. He was a dashing young man in white robes who was very young. There were, actually, other people in this place. Alarm bells rang in everyone's hearts. This was definitely a trap. From the moment they had been forced onto the island, this was a trap. However, they could not tell what the purpose of this trap was even now. Ling Han raised his voice. Who are you? Are you planning to give us an explanation? Of course. The white-robed young man nodded and smiled, looking very amiable and kindly. If it was not for the sake of giving you guys an explanation, What need would there be for me to appear? Wouldn't it have been fine to wait until all of you were killed? Hee hee, though you guys will still be dying afterwards. Chapter 24:53. Hui. The truth had come out, and the true culprit had appeared. Ling Han laughed. Then we will have to trouble you. It's no trouble. After all, you people have also solved a large problem for me. Moreover, you guys are also the harbingers of luck for my leaving this place. In thanks for all the contribution that you have made, it is natural that I should at least allow you to die enlightened, the white-robed man smilingly said. You are the one who's going to die. Hu Nyo humphed. It looked like everything had been this man's doing, which made her extremely angry. Yet the white-robed man was not angered in the slightest. Where do you guys want me to start? Tell us who you are first, Ji Wuming stated evenly. In his last life, Hu knew how many storms he had endured, and he had ultimately become an invincible celestial king. Thus, he naturally had his bearing. Even faced with a more dangerous situation, he would not feel the slightest bit of panic. The white-robed man smiled and bowed towards them as he said, My name is Hui, and this is a name I have bestowed on myself. Everyone exchanged looks. What kind of damn name was that? It didn't even include a surname. Moreover, even if he did have a name and surname, who would know where it had popped out from? Oh, actually, you guys have seen me long ago, Hui continued. Ling Han's eyes set on him fixedly. After a while he said in surprise, This is not your real body, but a spirit form that you have manifested. Pa pa pa. Hui clapped his hands, his face bearing an expression of approval. In fact, he even gave him a thumbs up. This was not Huey's real form. In fact, it was extremely possible that he wasn't even human. Everyone exchanged looks, and a thought suddenly popped up in their minds. You are one of those water vines, they exclaimed at the same time. Aside from the water vines, they really had never seen anything else. Unless he was an insect, but they could probably ignore this possibility. Hui laughed loudly. You have guessed the most part. However, I am not one of the water vines, but rather those are my roots. Gasp. Everyone was stunned. Just how long were the water vines? Everyone had a vague estimate. They could extend all the way from the depths of the ocean to the surface, so their length had to be astounding. Every single water vine actually could be considered a colossal creature, and now to say that these were all just Huey's roots? Then, just how gigantic did his real body have to be? In truth, Hui smiled and cast an eye over all of their faces. Only then did he state slowly, Where you are all standing now is the inside of my real body. Boom, it was like countless heaven and earth origin stars had been dropped in their heads. The group was so stunned that they were dazed for a moment. Hang on. Ling Han said grimly, This island itself is your body. Hui clapped his hands. You have guessed correctly. It was I that have forced you people all the way into my main body. You guys can continue guessing. Why have I done so? Who knows why you are so insane? Bewitching Maiden Ro immediately quipped. Yet the Empress said, You wanted us to fight with these insects? There are really quite a number of smart people. Hui laughed loudly. These are parasites in my real body. Though my battle prowess is boundless, I am only a celestial herb, after all, so my powers are limited. Moreover, these parasites reproduce at an extremely fast rate, and after they become insects, their defense is extremely strong. Even I am helpless against them. Fortunately, you have helped me get rid of them. So tell me, how can I not be grateful to you? Hua Ferong declared coldly. Then spare the nonsense, and hand over 10 to 20 celestial fruits. Hui laughed loudly. It is useless, even I gave them to you. As you are people who are about to die, what need is there for me to waste my energy? Is this the way you express your gratitude to your benefactors? Ling Han asked. Hui shook his head. Firstly, this is a trap that I have laid, and I have not asked for your help in the first place. Secondly, the reason you people barged in was just for the celestial seed, and not because you wanted to help me of your own volition. Thirdly, your killing the insects was only to save yourselves as well. He paused and then summarized. Thus I do not owe you anything. However, I have always distinguished clearly between kindness and hatred. Thus, I wish to offer my thanks to you. Everyone was speechless. This guy was really shameless. Furthermore, he had elevated shamelessness to a glorious degree. In that case, no matter what words they said, it would be useless against him. As they spoke, the insects were dying by the masses. The initial sea of insects was presently only a scattered few by now, and even those powerful pincet insects were ensnared by countless whip-like shapes, torn forcefully into pieces. With the death of the insect queen, the whole sea of insects had lost their chief commander and the support for their follow-up forces. Death was already inevitable. Xueqi was even calmer. His strength was indeed shockingly powerful, and now with the internal problem resolved, it was natural that everything was within his grasp. "You guys still have a great use," Xueqi stated calmly. "I have decided to take human form and leave this place. However, due to the limits of the celestial path, I cannot leave, unless I can cheat the heavens. I need your blood essence. Not only can it help my life essence become even stronger, I will also be able to deceive this heaven and earth so that I can leave. Thus, allow me to thank you again." Xueqi bowed again. Though he spoke very politely, it only made Ling Han and the others even more furious. "Do you have that kind of power?" Dongfang Rue humphed coldly. He was the son of a heavenly venerate, and now someone actually said they were going to extract his blood essence. This celestial herb had to be completely ignorant, and did not know how terrifying a heavenly venerate could be. Otherwise, the moment he left the celestial path, he would be erased by the heavenly venerate. To actually dare make a move on the descendant of a heavenly venerate, wasn't that just courting death? Xueqi scoffed and said, "Could it be that you guys have not witnessed my strength?" When his words fell, thousands of whip-like shapes immediately assailed. Every single whip-like shape was equivalent to an insect, and this number was also earth-shattering, in no way inferior to the sea of insects. Furthermore, they had already undergone a bloody battle, so how much battle prowess did they have left by now? Thankfully, Xueqi was just flexing his muscles, and did not truly attack them. At present, he was like an upstart that had just discovered a supreme treasure trove, so impatient to share his joy with others. Thus, even if Ling Han and the others would soon be killed by him, he was like a chatterbox. "A few epochs ago, I suddenly gained intelligence, and matured bit by bit." Xueqi narrated his tale. "It is really difficult for plants to succeed Tao. Even so, after so many years, my mentality has just barely matured. The essence of plants is beloved by the heaven and earth, but the moment they gain intelligence, they would be despised by the heaven and earth, causing parasites to emerge in my body, and I could get no peace. Thankfully, they are finally dealt with now." Xueqi revealed a menacing grin. "All right then. I have decided to kill all of you, and leave this god-forsaken place. As for your reward, I will try my best to be quicker so that you will only have to suffer the least amount of pain possible." Everyone was grim. They would have to fight another tough battle. Yet Ling Han raised his right hand. "I still have 2 heaven and earth origin stars on me. This is what had killed the insect queen previously. Do you want to give them a try?" Everyone was immediately overjoyed. As it turned out, Ling Han had kept something back. "Good. Wonderful. Don't kill me. Don't hurt me," Xueqi exclaimed in a very exaggerated fashion, and even wrapped his arms around himself, shivering. However, he immediately broke into involuntary laughter. "I am really unsuited to acting." He crossed his arms behind his back. "Just make your move if you like. This can't kill me at all. At most, I will only suffer a slight injury. Today, your only path will be death," he said word by word. Chapter 2454. Negotiations. Xueqi was secure, knowing that he had backing. He was brimming with confidence. He was determined to get all of their blood. Why did he only choose monarch stars? Not only was it because they had powerful battle prowess and could withstand the sea of insects, it was also because only their blood would be effective for him, and could help him deceive the heaven and earth so he could leave this place. Thus, he did not hesitate even if he would risk being severely injured by the heaven and earth origin stars. This was something that could be slowly healed from, but if he missed this opportunity, just when would he have another chance when there would be so many monarch stars gathered together? "Then let's battle," Hua Ferong declared coldly. If they were to battle outside, their chances of victory would actually be even lower. The water vines would only have to damage their ship, and just allow the ocean to deal with them. If they battled here, they would still have some hope. After all, this was inside Huey's body. His battle prowess would definitely be affected. Ling Han sighed, and took out the dimension scroll.
Hui, you had better not force me?
Oh. Hui looked towards Ling Han, a sliver of fury flickering in his eyes. Ling Han actually dared call him Hui 1. So what if I force you? Hui asked, appearing very disdainful. Ling Han broke into a grin. With a thought, he activated Wally's model. Instantly, he began to extract the energy inside the dimension scroll. Wang, his body glowed, and a frightening power surged out, presently erasing the poison in his body at a rapid rate. One was the most fundamental void particle energy of the Genesis world, while the other was the poison of parasites in the body of some celestial herb on the celestial path. Just how wide was the gap between their levels? Countless times over. Hence, when this energy surged out, the poison in his body rapidly melted like snow that was met with blazing fire. Quang, a sudden clap of thunder rang out, but did not appear above the cave. Instead, it was at a more distant location. Hui immediately paled in shock. Others might not be able to see it, but it was very clear to him. Dense clouds were spreading out above his body, with lightning flashing and blazing. A terrifying heavenly tribulation was presently building up. Just what level had this tribulation attained? He only had a feeling that if he was struck even once, he would definitely be done for. But he hadn't broken through to the next cultivation level, nor had he done anything that would anger the heaven and earth, so how could there possibly be a heavenly tribulation targeting him? No, it was not targeting him. It was targeting Ling Han. Just because Ling Han was inside his body, the moment he experienced the heavenly tribulation, the latter would think that Hui was covering for Ling Han, and what was the consequence of interfering in a heavenly tribulation? Being struck by lightning as well. He was going to be forced to undergo the tribulation. Stop. Stop now. Hui quickly called out loudly. If this heavenly tribulation really formed, then everyone here would die, and he would be no exception, either. Ling Han naturally couldn't possibly allow a heavenly venerate tribulation to really form. He stopped extracting the energy inside the dimension scroll and smiled calmly. Now, I think we have the need to negotiate, right? Hui was speechless. After a while he asked, "What do you want?" Ling Han smiled calmly. "First, you have to ferry us across the great ocean." "And then?" Hui asked. "Secondly, you have to let us go, of course." Hui immediately refused. "I can only let you go alone at most." He needed the blood of these monarch stars. Otherwise, he would have no way to change himself and leave the celestial path. In his eyes, this was a cage, imprisoning him forever in here. Ling Han shook his head. "No, you can only detain these two people at most." He pointed at Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong. They were the descendants of the Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate and Sealed Emotion Heavenly Venerable. He couldn't be bothered to care about their lives. Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong were both enraged. "Fuck, you are really too underhanded, aren't you?" But they did not flip out. Instead, they chose to follow Ling Han and the others all the way through. In this way, they would be able to escape together. No, at least 5. Hui shook his head. 5 was the lowest limit. If there were less than 5, there would be no way he could modify himself. Ling Han shook his head. Aside from Dongfang Rui and Xian Rong, the others were not so evil that he could use them as sacrifices. He once again extracted the energy inside the dimension scroll, and caused the thunderclouds to roll out, increasing his persuasiveness. Yet Hui had firmed his resolve. "I have already lived long enough, and have no wish to stay trapped in this damn place any longer. Thus, if I cannot leave this place, there is no difference whether I live or die." Really? Ling Han could not confirm it. Logically, Hui had just dealt with the disaster in his body, and should be presently looking forward very much to a wonderful life ahead of him. However, in the process of a herb spirit ascending Tao, who knew if they had had their brains burnt out as well? He continued to absorb the energy inside the dimension scroll, and in the instant right before the heavenly tribulation arrived, he stopped. Hui did not speak, and was using this means to express his determination, his resolve in leaving this place. He had to have predicted that Ling Han had no wish to die, either, and that was why he had the confidence to be so firm. However, this had really hit Ling Han's sore spot.
Ling Han thought for a while and then said, "You only need blood essence. It is not a must that you want our lives. Hence, we can all surrender some blood essence to you so you can achieve your goal." Hui was silent, and nodded after a while. "All right." Ling Han looked towards the rest, and when he saw them nodding as well, he nodded, and said, "We have reached an agreement on the second condition. Now the third and final condition."
"Speak," Hui said.
His expression was very livid. In his mind, he should have been able to overwhelm all of them, yet now was forced into negotiations, which made him feel very gloomy. It should be known he had played with them in the palm of his hand previously, so naturally he felt an indescribable feeling of superiority. Yet now, this sense of superiority had been shattered, and this was a very large gap. Ling Han said, "I need celestial fruits as well." He did not say "we," because this was what he had earned through his own strength. There was no need for him to share with others.
"How many?" Hui asked after a moment of silence.
These celestial fruits were what he had nurtured himself originally, and were of no use to him at all. However, now that he had already ascended Tao, giving out celestial fruits would be equivalent to wounding his own vitality.
Naturally, he was not very willing. Ling Han thought for a while. 20. Hui almost broke out into curses. "These are celestial fruits. Do you think they are cabbages? And you actually want 20? 20 your sister."
"1," he declared coldly.
"That's too few." Ling Han shook his head.
"More."
2, Hui said after a pause. "Some more." It was like Ling Han and Hui had become businessmen. One was calling out exorbitant prices, while the other was not willing to budge a single bit. After haggling for a long while, they finally settled on a deal 7. 1 for her, 1 for him, 1 for her. Ling Han pointed at Hun Yo, the Rain Emperor, and the others. He took one of the 7 celestial fruits for himself, while the rest were given to Hun Yo, the Empress, Bewitching Maiden Ro, the Rain Emperor, Ji Wuming, and Hua Farong, respectively. He had given one to Ji Wuming because Ling Han hoped that the former could be stronger and catch up with him, and in the case of Hua Farong, it actually was due to the same reason as well. However, Hua Farong was incredibly strong on her own, with an astonishingly high evolution index. Both Dongfang Rue and Xian Rong were very envious, but how could it be that they would ask for celestial fruits from Ling Han? "All right, take us to the coast." Hui did not say a single word. He turned and left, his figure disappearing like foam. Though he could still leave the celestial path, according to the agreement, the process was bumpy and rocky. It had not been as smooth as he had imagined, which made him very displeased. 7 months later, Hui appeared again and said, "We've reached the coast." They left, and with Hui leading the way, the labyrinth was naturally no issue. Very quickly, they arrived at the cave entrance from before. After walking out, they could see the bright crimson sun hanging in the skies, which lightened their spirits as well. Chapter 2455. Splitting Up.
"Hand over the blood essence to me."
A sliver of divine sense from Hui took human form, and appeared at the cave entrance. Ling Han looked towards the distance. An expansive mainland appeared ahead of them. They had indeed arrived near the coast. Ling Han smiled slightly, yet shook his head. "We have to reach the coast first." Hui was displeased. "I have already fulfilled your conditions. Could it be that you don't think that you should show some of your sincerity? As long as we are in this massive ocean, you would have an advantage. In the first place, our agreement is not between equals," Ling Han said. "With how strong you are, even if we are on land, you are close to being invincible, so why should you be so concerned?" Hui humphed. In terms of genuine strength, even if they all joined forces, they would not be a match for him. This was because he had absolutely not revealed any of his weaknesses. Ling Han and the others could not truly cause him any serious injury. At most, they could only slice off a few of his roots, and this was practically just an itch to him. "You people had best not have other ideas, or I will definitely not be so nice." "Fine, fine, fine." Ling Han nodded casually. Hui ferried them to the beach, and Ling Han and the others hurriedly jumped onto the beach. Instantly, their hearts calmed. With their feet on solid ground, their battle prowess finally could be unleashed to pinnacle level, and throughout these 4 months, they had naturally expelled the insect poison completely as well, returning to their prime condition.
Blood essence,
Hui demanded. Ling Han nodded, and was the first to stretch out his right hand. Stimulated with force, the tip of his finger glowed.
Then, with a slice of the divine demon sword, a drop of blood shining with an unusual glimmer appeared.
Da da da. He bled out 10 drops of blood in total, and they were contained in a jade bottle. This was blood essence. Even if he only had to give up 10 drops, it still had serious effects on Ling Han, causing his expression to become very ugly. Thankfully, with his amazing body art, it would also be very fast for him to recover his blood essence. Hua Ferong and the others also cut their wrists to let out some blood. They all gave up 10 drops. Blood essence was too valuable, so it naturally could only be given out in drops. Hui glanced them over and said, "I'm still missing a bit more." This was just barely enough for him, but it was not assured. Ling Han asked, "How much more do you need?" "At least another 20 drops. Hui was not reserved either. Ling Han looked towards Dongfang Rue and Xianrong. "You guys let out some more blood." The both of them were immediately outraged. "Why does it have to be us?" "That's right. There are 10 of us, so it would be fine if each of us just gives out another 1 or 2 drops.
Bewitching Maiden Ro was not a monarch star, so even if she requested to surrender some of her own blood of her own volition, we would not take it, either.
It was of no use to him. Ling Han tossed them a glare. "I told you to let out some blood, so just do as I say. Why are you two spouting so much nonsense? Why don't you guys ask yourselves what you have done? Now I'm just telling you to let out some blood, and you're so noisy about it." "No." Both of them shook their heads. Ling Han moved. Boom, with battle prowess and power of regulation surging at the same time, his battle prowess leaped past the line of Celestial King tier all at once as he suppressed both Dongfang Rue and Xianrong. "Damn it!" The two of them hurriedly entered into heaven-forbidden state, and began clashing with Ling Han. Unfortunately, even if they had entered into this state, it only allowed their vitality index to be extremely close to the Celestial King tier, and while using celestial techniques further would indeed possibly push their battle prowess past the line of Celestial King tier, it was still slightly inferior compared with Ling Han. The result was that they were still only beaten into continuous retreat by Ling Han even when the two of them joined forces. In just 100 moves, Ling Han suppressed the both of them. He held the divine demon sword at their necks, forcing them to surrender their blood essence. There was naturally no way that Ji Wuming would help them, and Hua Ferong acted as if she had seen nothing. Who could stop Ling Han? Dongfang Rue and Xianrong could only force out another few drops of blood essence, but they were both only willing to surrender 5 drops. Otherwise, they would rather choose to directly break through to the Celestial King tier. If they lost too much blood essence, their battle prowess would drop greatly, and they would definitely be unable to obtain the perfect celestial seed at the end. Since that was the case, what need was there for them to accept a compromise? "I only have so much." Ling Han tossed the 2 jade bottles over to Hui.
Actually, the blood essence from before was barely enough for his use. Hence, after Hui took the jade bottles, he nodded, and did not push them any further. "Then we will take our leave,"
Ling Han said. Hui's figure trembled, and disappeared from sight. This was only a sliver of his divine sense. However, soon after, waves rose up in the ocean, as countless water vines shot up into the skies, creating extremely terrifying tsunami waves that were thousands of meters tall. Everyone showed hints of alert in their expression. Was Hui going to become hostile? Boom, the ocean waves split apart, and an astonishingly massive island rose up in the ocean. However, after the island rose up thousands of meters, they could see countless water vines beneath it, intertwined tightly together. This was Hui's real body. "Looks like a carrot," Ling Han muttered. It really looked like a carrot, just that it was countless times much larger. "No meat, not delicious," Hu Niu said with a yawn. Losing 10 drops of blood essence made her feel very weary. Xiao, this giant carrot, released a blurry light that wrapped around it entirely. Then, suddenly, the light dazzled brilliantly, causing their vision to blur. Was he going to attack? Everyone stayed on the alert, but when the light dimmed, a person appeared in front of them. It was still Hui. What was he playing at? Yet Ling Han's eyes narrowed. "You actually can take on human form already." The human Hui from before was only a sliver of divine sense, but now his real body had taken human form. The significance was completely different. If the present Hui was killed, he really would die. Everyone couldn't help but feel keen. If they could kill such a celestial herb that had gained intelligence and ascended Tao, just how much amazing profit would they be able to gain? Hui humphed and spread open his right hand. Multiple water vines appeared, densely intertwined in an extremely exaggerated manner. Everyone immediately dismissed the thought of attacking. Though he had taken human form, Hui's strength was still terrifying. "What is it? You want to accompany us further?" Ling Han asked smilingly. "I too want a flawless celestial seed," Hui declared darkly. "Fuck, you yourself are a celestial seed, so what do you want it for?" Ling Han exclaimed exaggeratedly. Hui humphed. "Then you guys also have celestial seeds in your bodies, so why do you still desire a flawless celestial seed?" This was quite logical, and rendered everyone speechless. Still, a celestial herb that should be supplying celestial seeds actually wanted to contend with them over celestial seeds. No matter how they thought about it, it was rather strange. "Then we will use our respective powers, and depend on our own luck respectively," Hua Ferong said coldly. Just think, she was known as the #1 celestial maiden in the eras, yet she had actually been tricked by a herb, and almost died, which made her very furious. However, her disadvantage lay in the fact that she had not broken through the barrier to the Celestial King tier. Once she set foot into this threshold, her battle prowess would be incredibly powerful. This revenge would definitely be exacted. Xiao, her figure rose, and she was the first to leave. Dongfang Rue and Xian Rong were also looking at Ling Han venomously. They would remember the humiliation that they had suffered. Once they became Celestial Kings, they would definitely seek Ling Han out and get their revenge. Ling Han scoffed and demanded coldly, "What are you two looking at?" The two of them did not refute him. Instead they turned and left. At present, all of them could break through to the Celestial King tier, which meant that they had grasp of a very powerful trump card. Every single one of them were secure, knowing that they had backing. Ji Wuming also left gracefully, and did not bring along his intergenerational disciple. Shi Chanzi, however, left with Jia Lon, who knew if some relation surpassing friendship had occurred between the two of them. "Fourth brother, we will also move separately," the Rain Emperor said. "Sure," Ling Han said with a nod. The team of 11 immediately split up, and once more only Ling Han and his group was left, along with the addition of Hui. Chapter 2456. Summoning Cloud City. This was a big boss. Hui was expressionless, as cold as ice. Ling Han smiled. "There were so many of them, so why must you follow me?" Hui glanced at him emotionlessly. "You are a very intriguing person. You are the first person to successfully threaten me. Furthermore, I am very curious about the reason why you can use such great power." "You want to know? Fine, I'll tell you." Ling Han generously took out Wally's model theory, and even provided the detailed formula. In any case, there was no one that could learn it at present aside from him. True enough, Hui was extremely dazed. At the beginning, he was still pondering, but very soon, he collapsed, and turned into his real form of a giant carrot, endless roots waving around. "Let's go." Ling Han pulled the 3 women with him, and escaped quickly. He had no wish to stay with a terrifying guy like Hui. Though the latter had not advanced into the Celestial King tier, either otherwise, why would he need a flawless celestial seed? This guy was really terrifying with his special form under specific conditions. It was best to keep their distance. The 4 of them set out, and continued their quest for celestial seeds. Their final destination was naturally the heart of the celestial path. Only after becoming a celestial king would they be able to directly leave from there. This mainland after their marine trip was extremely dangerous, with various poisonous swamps, valleys filled with sword chi, and mountains with soaring saber intent. Every location could not be barged in rashly, or the only result would be death. They had probably reached the level of second heaven, or even third heaven celestial king tier. 4 pseudo-celestial kings like them, they were all places of danger, death and demise. However, it was not that those danger zones could not traverse through. That would have to depend on the date. Perhaps there were just a few hours in a whole month when they would be safe, and one could pass through. Perhaps it would be alternate days. The time was extremely short. Ling Han and the others naturally slowed down.
There were some danger zones that would only have a change once every few years.
They had to be extremely patient. At times, they had to stay for a longer time. Otherwise, if any unexpected changes took place, it would be too late for regret.
This was not them being too cautious, but rather that they had encountered this situation before. They had clearly seen a change take place in their environment, and it could be traversed, but it only lasted for 1 or 2 breaths at most before returning back to being extremely frightening, with killing intent around every corner. Though this kind of falsely safe situation did not appear too frequently, it just needed to happen once, and they would have to take careful notice because no one could guarantee the danger zone that they were about to pass through was not in a state of false safety.
In this fashion, their progress naturally became overwhelmingly slow.
Over 1,000 years had passed, and they were still very far away from the heart of the celestial path. No wonder the celestial path would be open for as long as 10,000 years. If they had to walk all the way to the heart, the time taken was indeed very long.
Ling Han and the others had naturally grasped the celestial seed marks that Hui had bestowed on them, allowing them to grasp slightly Hui's Tao. It was more inclined towards slaughter, and was also close to death, which was very bizarre.
And it was also because of this that they had spent a good few centuries before finally grasping the celestial seed mark.
However, none of them wanted to use this as their own celestial seed, even if the overall level of the celestial seed was higher. If they used it to break through to the celestial king tier, their whole person would become a killing machine, cold and emotionless. It could only be used for reference.
The 4 were also continuously absorbing celestial seeds, comprehending them one after another, and extracting the essence within to increase their own understanding of Tao. Ling Han had told the 3 women before that he had had great ambitions. He would take the strengths of thousands of celestial seeds, and form a celestial seed that belonged uniquely to him alone. He did not want any celestial seed that already existed, because in his eyes, any celestial seed that already existed would naturally bear the mark of another, even if this other was actually the heaven and earth.
His own Tao should be unique and solely his. The Empress and Hu Niu both decided to do the same.
They would collect all kinds of celestial seeds and gather their strength together to form a celestial seed that suited them the most.
Bewitching Maiden Ro did not have such grand ambitions.
Now, she would already have no regrets if she could break through to the celestial king tier. The more celestial seed marks there were, the deeper Ling Han's appreciation became. It was like the heaven and earth had also appeared in front of him in the form of these marks. He would be able to grasp regulations with a simple movement, and nothing was impossible for him. This kind of feeling was very amazing, making him gain an urge to hurriedly break through to the celestial king tier.
He hurriedly repressed this kind of urge. If he broke through now, it would not be perfect enough.
The 4 of them continued on their way.
Sometimes, they would not be walking in a straight line, but would rather detour to other places. As long as there was a celestial seed, they would make their move.
This was their purpose in coming to the celestial path. The number of celestial king pills in Ling Han's possession increased further and further. Not only was there one for each of his wives and parents, even his friends could each have claimed to one. This was something they could not have imagined before they set out, that things would actually progress so smoothly.
Time sped by swiftly.
Another 7,000 years passed, and only less than 2,000 years were left until the deadline of 10,000 years. Ling Han and the others made some adjustments, and did not roam any further. Instead, they headed directly for the central area of the celestial path. They could not possibly make the cutoff period with too little time to spare, or they could really be trapped here for eternity. The celestial fruits Ling Han had obtained numbered in the hundreds. The mark that each of them had formed appeared in his mind. He had a kind of feeling that even if it was that so-called flawless celestial seed, so what? He had not intended to break through with that celestial seed, either. At most he would only study it. In fact, he had a feeling that even if he broke through now, the celestial seed he formed would not be inferior to a flawless celestial seed. Of course, with no immediate reason. He was in no rush to break through either. The Empress and Bewitching Maiden Row 1 were slightly inferior. They still had to accumulate some more. On this day, they arrived in a city, and made some queries to find out just how far they were from the heart of the celestial path. This city was called Summoning Cloud City, and had a celestial king as overseer. Naturally, the celestial king was named Summoning Cloud Celestial King.
This city had been named after his title in the first place. The Summoning Cloud Celestial King was very powerful. He was a third heaven celestial king, and could definitely be considered a supreme elite on the celestial path. However, it was rumored that this celestial king was presently not within the city, but no one knew where exactly he had gone, nor did anyone dare to ask. In any case, no one dared to cause trouble. Otherwise, if a celestial king was truly enraged, wouldn't that just be seeking death? Ling Han and the others entered into the city to find out the details of their present situation. Do you guys know where Lord Summoning Clouds has gone? In the restaurant, there were people constantly discussing spiritedly, passing judgment on everything. At times, they really would reveal some real secrets. How could we possibly know? That's right. Wherever Lord Summoning Clouds has gone, how could it be that he would have to tell us first? The customer from before laughed loudly. Let me tell you guys. I have a relative that is the son of a distant third uncle of the youngest disciple of the Summoning Cloud Celestial King. He has told me himself that Lord Summoning Clouds has gone to fight a war. What? Lord Summoning Clouds is already so strong, and there is still someone that dares to become his enemy? Someone asked disbelievingly. That's right. You must be grandstanding. This is completely unbelievable. The customer from before spoke with an assured tone as he patted his chest and declared, I can swear on my life that every word I say is true. Then tell us, whom has Lord Summoning Clouds gone to war with? I do not know. The customer from before shook his head. Tisk. Everyone shook their heads. This could not hold up to questioning at all. Immediately, the cat was let out of the bag. It's true, the customer from before hurriedly exclaimed. Though I do not know whom Lord Summoning Clouds has gone to war with, it is rumored that Lord Qiyuan has muttered this before. It involves the method to leave the celestial path. Chapter 2457. Redeeming the Hostage. Ling Han was intrigued now, and pricked up his ears to listen. However, the others were completely uninterested, and scoffed. To ordinary people like them, this city was more or less their everything. At most, the farthest they had gone would be several hundred kilometers out of the city. Furthermore, there was no way they could become celestial kings, either. Staying on the celestial path or being in the celestial realm had completely no difference for them. When the customer from before saw this, he couldn't help but wilt. At first, he thought that he had a great secret, something that he could boast about for a few years. Meanwhile, Ling Han thought back to when they had just entered the celestial path. It was said that the celestial kings here would try to be as near to the heart of the celestial path as possible, and that was to contend for the treasure trove lying within. Now that he thought about it again, what if this so-called treasure trove was actually the chance to leave the celestial path? Even Hui had thought of the idea to deceive the heavens, and wanted to leave this place. There was no reason that great and mighty celestial kings would resign themselves to being eternally trapped here. For ordinary people, the celestial path was incredibly massive, but for celestial kings, it was just a slightly bigger prison. Ling Han frowned slightly. What he was concerned about now was if this opportunity that these celestial kings were contending over just happened to come into conflict with that flawless celestial seed. Coming out of the restaurant, he asked around again, and found out that Summoning Cloud City was already very close to the heart of the celestial path. Going by the speed of an ascending origin tier, it was only about a 300-year journey. For pseudo-celestial kings like them, the time would definitely be much shorter than that. However, it was not so easy to enter into the heart of the celestial path. There were powerful immortal beasts standing guard, and even the celestial kings would not dare to rashly set foot there. They were very wary about going there. Ling Han and the others exited the city. Right when they arrived at the city gates, they saw someone attaching notices on the wall. At first, Ling Han did not pay any attention, but when he swept an eye over, a hint of surprise appeared in his expression. This was an arrest warrant, and a person's face was drawn there. If some abominable evil criminal was really being listed as wanted, Ling Han would forget about it after a single glance, but the problem here was that he recognized this face. Yan Xianlu. Could it be that this guy had made an enemy of the Summoning Cloud Celestial King? But the Summoning Cloud Celestial King had already left, so who could be able to apprehend Yan Xianlu? He was a monarch tier, and had reached the peak stage of the ascending origin tier. Without being a celestial king, who could suppress him? Ling Han looked towards that notice, and couldn't help but look angered. It was written there that Yan Xianlu had fallen into someone's hands, and Ling Han was to head to a certain location to redeem him. He was given the time limit of 100 years, and 70 years had already passed since this deadline was given. Ling Han captured the person who was sticking out the notices. It was just a minor character that had just advanced into the heavenly body tier. He said that someone had given him a starstone to stick these notices everywhere in the city.
Where is that person?
Ling Han asked. He knew that this guy was just a minor character, and wouldn't know anything at all.
I in the Fortunate Clouds Inn.
Feeling Ling Han's killing intent, the minor character shivered in fear. Ling Han nodded, and when he found out where Fortunate Clouds Inn was, he directly charged over. The three women were also furious. To actually dare to capture Ling Han's friend and use him as a threat against him, who would dare be so outrageously bold? However, since he had the intention to target Ling Han, it should be impossible that he did not know how strong Ling Han was. There had to be a terrifying trap laid out in wait for Ling Han. They soon arrived at the Fortunate Clouds Inn. Ling Han headed directly for one of the rooms, and knocked on the door.
Who is it?
Very soon, someone opened the doors. A middle-aged man walked out, directing a confused look at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled slightly.
Don't you know me?
Who are you? The middle-aged man asked, his gaze filled with alertness. This person's cultivation level was only at the severing mundane tier as well, being pitifully weak. Ling Han frowned. It looked like this was also just an errand boy. He pushed open the doors and entered. That person couldn't stop him at all, but when he saw the Empress and the other women behind Ling Han, he couldn't help but stare. Instantly, he was rendered speechless. Ling Han sat down very casually. Who told you to stick those notices? The middle-aged man was surprised, and hurriedly replied, My lord, this has nothing to do with me. A lord told me to do this. He is very powerful, and I have no choice but to obey him. This person said that Summoning Cloud City was not the first place that he had gone to, but rather the third. Merely the journey itself had taken over a decade's time.
If it were not for the fact that the person who had commanded him to do this had also provided a carriage for him, the time he had spent would only have been even longer.
Ling Han paused. The true culprit told this person to spread the news of Yan Xianlu being captured everywhere, so it was probable the middle-aged man was not the only one that was hired. That was why he could stick notices in various cities, and increase the chances of Ling Han finding out. The person who has commanded you, do you remember what he looks like? Ling Han asked. A section of my memories has been erased. I am not sure at all, the middle-aged man said, slightly anxious, as if he feared that Ling Han would directly take his life in displeasure. Ling Han sneered. The true culprit actually feared that he would find out who he really was. Who exactly could it be? What do you plan to do? The Empress asked. Naturally, I will keep the appointment, Ling Han said. Firstly, Yan Xianlu was his subordinate, and had always been executing his commands. Though there was change in the present situation, and it was practically impossible that their alliance would come into play, their friendship was still there. Secondly, Ling Han also wanted to know who was targeting him. There are many who want to kill me, but there are not many that have the strength to do so, Ling Han thought out loud. There should not be anyone in the ascending origin tier that can touch me.
Thus, the other must have broken through on the celestial path, and is compelling me to appear so he can take this opportunity when I have not become a celestial king yet to get rid of me.
However, there seem to be quite a number of such ascending origin tiers as well, the Empress said in reminder. There were indeed quite a number. There should be a great many celestial kings that wanted to curry the favor with the two great heavenly venerates, Zhouwu Heavenly Venerate and Sealed Emotion Heavenly Venerable, so it was nothing strange that they would tell their disciples to snipe Ling Han on the celestial path. By now, more than 8,000 years had passed, and those that should become celestial kings would naturally more or less have broken through, so they had begun to lay out traps for Ling Han. On the other hand, only those with great ambition would not have broken through yet. Their goal was naturally the last flawless celestial seed. This would influence whether they would be able to become heavenly venerates or not. Looks like the other party seems to be quite confident, Ling Han said. To attach notices so boldly and publicly was more or less an announcement to the world. If Ling Han could easily save the hostage, what face would his opponent have left? What do you plan on doing? The Empress asked. Kill him, Hunyo called out from the sidelines. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then said, "This time, I will go alone. All of you will wait outside for me. If it is just me alone, I can easily retreat or advance. However, you guys have to be careful as well. This may just be a trap, yet the main targets could be you guys." The Empress and the others nodded. Bewitching Maiden Rose said, "If we really encounter danger, I will break through immediately." She was a monarch tier. Once she broke through to the Celestial King tier, she would definitely be one of the more powerful among newly advanced Celestial Kings. Only a monarch star would be able to suppress her. "Alright. Let's set out first, and we will act separately when we are almost there." They left Summoning Cloud City. Previously, they had already found out where Yen Xianlu was being held hostage. Hence, they were directly heading towards the destination. The location was actually very distant. Even they at their current level had traveled for over 2 months before finally drawing near to the location. The place where Ling Han was to go to redeem the hostage was a canyon. Its name was Tiger Caging Canyon, and he knew just from the name itself that this place had to be extremely dangerous. Chapter 2458. Tiger Caging Canyon. The Tiger Caging Canyon was a narrow canyon. The cliff walls on either side were thousands of meters tall. They were tall, steep and thin, as if 2 sharp blades. Looking from afar, the cliff walls were enshrouded in a black fog, and looked like a haunted mountain. "Alright, you guys find somewhere to hide," Ling Han said. The Empress and the other women left together, while Ling Han took a deep breath, and strode towards the Tiger Caging Canyon. He was very curious about who exactly was behind this scheme. Dongfeng Rui? Xian Rong? Yu Wudi? Or was it some other random character? Ling Han did not hide his movements, and simply strode towards the canyon boldly like that. However, his energy was already adjusted to its prime condition. He could unleash the most powerful blow at any moment. A while later, he arrived at the entrance of the canyon. From this angle, the whole canyon was like a monster that was opening its eerie dark giant mouth, planning to swallow and devour him. The terrain here was dangerous, with cliffs on either side. The canyon was long and narrow, no wider than 9 meters. This was a place very suitable for an ambush. Ling Han held out a hand, clenched it into a fist, and delivered a punch at the cliff. Pang! A deep sound rang out from the cliff wall. Bits of rock fell off, but the mountain itself was not damaged in the slightest. Very firm. Ling Han appeared slightly surprised. Though he had not used his full power in this punch, the power of this blow was not weak either, yet it actually hadn't damaged the mountain in the slightest, which showed just how tough this mountain was. No wonder they had laid a trap for him here. It was clear that he was to have no way of retreat. With both ends sealed off, plus sealing off any aerial escape, there was no need for too many people, and he would be an easy target. Of course, the prerequisite was that all of them had to reach or even surpass Ling Han's strength. Otherwise, it would be Ling Han that would be getting rid of them in a single stroke. Still, has Yen Xianlu really been captured? Ling Han pondered deeply. With Yen Xianlu's strength as a monarch tier, even if he hadn't obtained a complete celestial seed after so many years, he should have fused a complete one from the celestial seed shards that he had obtained. In that case, when he was attacked, he would have a life-saving card left to play breaking through to the Celestial King tier. Once he became a Celestial King, even if there was a gap in strength, there would be really no way to stop him from leaving if he wanted to, unless the gap in cultivation level was too wide, such as a 4th heaven against a 1st heaven Celestial King. Thus, it was very easy for Celestial Kings to determine who was stronger, but to kill a Celestial King was difficult. The strongest Celestial King on the Celestial Path was only at the 3rd heaven, and this kind of Celestial King had no grudges against Ling Han, so how could they make use of Yen Xianlu to lay out a trap for him? As Ling Han walked, a smile appeared at the corners of his lips as he thought, "Am I a little foolish? I clearly know that the whole thing is a trap, yet still jump inside of my own volition." He was very displeased that someone would target him in secret and launch sneak attacks against him, but the other party would definitely appear this time. He just wanted to see who exactly was behind all this. If Ling Han had the chance, he would kill this damn insect. It was always displeasing to have someone target him from behind. He strode in. He naturally had his own reasons for daring to be so confident. The tiger caging canyon was eerie.
There were no sounds of birds, nor the growls of wild animals. This place was as silent as a den of ghosts. After walking some ways, he discovered a wooden pillar erected ahead of him. It was as tall as 30 meters, and a rope hung down from the very top. A person was presently hanging on this rope. This person was disheveled. The most Ling Han could tell was that this person had to be a man, but the exact details of his appearance could not be distinguished.
Yen Xianlu.
Ling Han called out loudly, "Brother Yen! Brother Yen!"
The person's limbs drooped lifelessly, his head hanging down on his chest. There was not the slightest movement. It was unknown whether he was unconscious from severe injury or already dead.
Ling Han walked to the foot of the wooden pillar, raised his head, and called out, "Brother Yen, I have come to save you." Xiao. He suddenly waved out a hand, and a cold light shot out, flying rapidly towards Yen Xianlu. This was the divine demon sword, but the target that the tip of the blade was pointed at was not the rope above that person. It aimed directly at his mind. This strike was astonishingly quick as Ling Han had used the regulations of space on it, and added with the special ability of the divine demon sword itself, it directly pierced through space, reaching that person's forehead.
Wang, right at this moment, the dying person immediately came back to life. He exuded a shocking aura. It was at the Celestial King tier, capable of shaking stars down from the skies.
However, Ling Han's battle prowess was comparable to a Celestial King's, and added with how body art would burst out faster, while the divine demon sword was more powerful than the average celestial tool, and had gained a special ability, Ling Han was faster. Besides, that Celestial King had previously withheld his aura completely, pretending to be a dying man. Though he had shown his might now, there was still a process necessary to create that burst of power.
Could he make it in time?
Pooh! The divine demon sword directly penetrated through the forehead of that Celestial King, and only stopped when the hilt of the sword was stopped by his skull. Instantly, a shower of blood started raining down as the heaven and earth grieved for the death of a Celestial King. To be frank, this Celestial King had really died too uselessly. He had not even made a single move. In fact, he had not even shown his face before he was insta-killed. This was practically a great humiliation.
Ling Han stretched out a hand.
Xiao, the divine demon sword immediately flew back towards him, and fell once more into his grasp.
Hee, I have already said that this villain was extremely wily.
See, our plot couldn't succeed, and the force on our side has decreased instead, someone said with a sneer. Though it seemed like a self-reflection, there was absolutely no sorrow felt for the death of that Celestial King. It was like they were complete strangers.
Ling Han raised a brow.
"You Wudi."
"That's right. It is me."
Yu Wudi walked down slowly from above the canyon, his arms crossed behind his back. He had completely stabilized his Celestial King tier cultivation level by now, and the streak of light around him was extremely dazzling. He exuded the unique pressure that belonged to a Celestial King, which would make others hold their breaths and shivers.
Ling Han nodded.
"I was just thinking who could be so shameless and lay this kind of trap, and you definitely were one of them." Yu Wudi was not angered in the slightest. He had already experienced Ling Han's sharp tongue before, and naturally knew that he could not debate with Ling Han, or he would definitely experience a loss.
He smiled faintly. "These are your last words?"
Ling Han set his eyes on him.
"Not bad. There is improvement in your strength. Unfortunately, it is still very weak."
Yu Wudi's hands trembled involuntarily, his eyes spitting out blades of ice. If it were not due to Ling Han, why would he have had to break through so early? If it were not due to Ling Han hindering him, he could have rushed all the way to the height of the middle stage of the first heaven at least. By then, his battle prowess would have reached the middle stage of the second heaven. But now, though he had stabilized his cultivation at the Celestial King tier, his battle prowess had just reached the pinnacle of the first heaven. This was extremely inconsistent with his aptitude as a monarch star. Feeling Ling Han touch his sore spot, Yu Wudi was naturally very resentful.
"Your good luck ends here.
Next, I will make you pay a terrible price, and regret having been born in this world," Yu Wudi declared menacingly. "Your words are eloquent but untruthful." Ling Han waved a hand dismissively.
"Whatever tricks you have up your sleeve, just go ahead. With just you, there is still no way to kill me."
Ling Han was equivalent to a Celestial King himself.
For a celestial king to kill another celestial king, how could it be done without being 3 heavens higher in cultivation? Ling Han was not stupid, and would not retreat and battle to death even while knowing that this was a deadly battle. I have already said that there is no need for so much trouble.
Once this brat entered the canyon, we should have immediately ganged up on him.
Another voice rang out. A second celestial king appeared. A streak of color entwined around him, his aura shocking. Ling Han looked over, and couldn't help but grin. So it is you. What is it? You have fled previously, and now why do you dare to return? Previously, the Blue North Celestial King had allied with 6 other Celestial Kings to snipe Ling Han. Yet Ling Han was the one who had turned the tables on them and killed the Blue North Celestial King, scaring off the other 6 great Celestial Kings. Meanwhile, this Celestial King who had just spoken was one of those Celestial Kings that had been scared off previously. Chapter 2459. Attack from all sides. Ling Han laughed loudly. Since one is here, the remaining ones should all be present as well, right? Humph! A cold sneer rang out, and another 4 Celestial Kings appeared, 2 in front and the other 2 behind. In this way, the 6 Celestial Kings had completely sealed off the path in front, behind, and above Ling Han. And sturdy walls were on either side of him. The same went for the ground below him as well. Even the powerful might of a Celestial King could not cause any damage to it, which meant that Ling Han was really and truly trapped here. Previously, it was mentioned that it would be very difficult for a Celestial King to kill another Celestial King. This had a prerequisite to it. The moment that there was a larger advantage in numbers, and the Celestial King had been surrounded, it would also be very normal for a Celestial King to be killed. If the first Celestial King had not been killed by Ling Han, there should have been a total of 7 Celestial Kings. Ling Han smiled slightly. Haven't you guys learned enough from the last lesson? The 5 Celestial Kings all looked wary. Previously, the Blue North Celestial King had been killed with a single toss of the sword from Ling Han, and that threat hadn't changed. The might of the Celestial Tool was truly terrifying. There was practically no way a First Heaven Celestial King could bear up against it. He could only flee and escape. Yet Xueqi sneered. He summoned the Violet Divine Staff. Don't think that you are the only one who has a celestial tool. He only had to restrain Ling Han head-on so that the Divine Demon Sword would not be able to unleash its might, and the other 5 Celestial Kings would be able to exert their full efforts to cut off Ling Han's head. If it were not for the fact that one of the Celestial Kings insisted on trying to blindside Ling Han, he would not have been killed by Ling Han without even managing to attack once. He could be considered as having suffered his just deserts. Primarily, he had been intimidated by Ling Han's previous kill. Even if he knew that Xueqi had a celestial tool, he still wasn't very reassured. They wanted to have more insurance, and schemed against Ling Han. The results were the complete opposite of his plans as he had destroyed himself with his error in judgment. Ling Han shook his head. I had initially wondered just how frightening this trap would have been. In the end, it is just the 6 of you. Sigh, my excitement's all wasted. Ling Han, just where do you get this confidence from? Xueqi humphed. Since Ling Han had now entered into this trap, his fate was definitely death with no hope of survival. Ling Han looked towards those other Celestial Kings. There is only a single Celestial tool. Can you divide it equally amongst yourselves? The reason why they had previously accepted the invitation of the Blue North Celestial King was precisely because they wanted to obtain the Celestial tool. One of the Celestial Kings spoke, his voice deep. We are also very interested in the cultivation technique that you cultivate. If you are willing to allow us to flip through your spirit, there is no definite need to kill you. Regarding this condition, Xueqi made no indication he opposed it. Because if Ling Han's spirit was riffled through, it would be equivalent to Ling Han having handed the power over his life to them. If they wanted to destroy his spirit, it would only be the matter of a single thought. Ling Han naturally would not fall for it. He smiled faintly. I am not interested in your suggestions. Why don't I just kill all of you then? In your dreams, the great Celestial Kings rebuked. Meanwhile, Xueqi said, there is no need to waste words on him. This kind of person is extraordinarily stubborn, and would be holding out hope until they are faced with a grim reality. Let's move. All 6 great Celestial Kings looked coldly on Ling Han. An ascending origin tier, a pseudo-celestial king could be strong to this extent. This was too abnormal. The cultivation technique he cultivated had to be world-shaking. They very much wanted to take possession of it. Ling Han was all smiles, calm and unhurried. Think of the experience of the insect cave inside Hui's body. Had survived even such a crisis. So what fear would he feel towards these 6 mere celestial kings in front of him? Too bad these people did not know that unless one had once been the overlord of a realm, even if they possessed Wally's model, it would still be useless. At least, they would have to be a 9th heaven celestial king before they could be qualified to even touch this level. Hence, even if Ling Han was willing to hand Wally's model to them, not one of them would be able to learn it anyway. To say the least, even if it was taught to 9th heaven celestial kings, not even 1 in 10,000 could possibly make use of it. That was something that could allow one to advance into the heavenly venerable tier. Even if Ling Han explained this to them, it would be useless. Would Yu Wuti and the others believe him? Moreover, Ling Han had no intention of telling them such a secret, either. Then come battle. Ling Han waved the divine demon's sword. After drinking the blood of another celestial king, this celestial tool was exuding a devilish gleam. The blade was covered with splotches of blood, looking very strange. Ling Han sensed it momentarily, and couldn't help but be surprised. This was Celestial King blood essence. It was unknown how much ancestral king blood essence he had refined, so he would naturally not be unfamiliar with it. It was precisely because of this that he was extremely surprised. It was clear that his sword had nailed the forehead of that celestial king, so how could it be covered with blood essence? It should be known that blood essence was stored inside the heart. Could it be that the divine demon sword had the ability to actively extract blood essence? Why hadn't he realized this before? Ling Han examined it carefully. In truth, the divine demon sword was devouring the celestial king blood essence, and as the blood flowed, it was slowly becoming dimmer as the essence within was absorbed. And correspondingly, the aura that this divine sword exuded was also becoming more and more overbearing and cold. The sword was a weapon of violence, drinking blood and causing murder. Previously, he had not discovered this ability, because the enemies he killed were not at the celestial king tier at all. The divine demon sword couldn't even be bothered to drink the blood of their likes. Die! Yu Wuti was the first to charge out, and swiftly waved his staff down on Ling Han's head, planning to smash Ling Han into mush. When this staff descended, it was like the whole heaven and earth had collapsed, and space crumbled, turning into multiple whirlpools of darkness. This was the battle prowess of the peak stage of the first heaven. At present, Yu Wuti's vitality index was at least 5,400 points, and his battle prowess surpassed it slightly. The might of the staff was great, and could not be stopped. Ling Han wanted to test out his power, and slashed out towards Yu Wuti with a wave of the divine demon sword. Pang! The two celestial tools clashed, instantly erupting with dazzling lights. Unless they were celestial kings, potential onlookers could not even open their eyes in front of it, and what was even more terrifying was the ferocious might emanating from the two celestial tools. Even a lower-level celestial king would be breaking out in a cold sweat. What was the violet divine staff? It was a precious tool forged by a 9th heaven celestial king. Even if the imperial void celestial king had not entered the ranks of the strongest celestial kings at that time, his cultivation level was still there. A 9th heaven celestial king could crush a 1st heaven celestial king with a single finger, so the might of this celestial tool was naturally frightening. The divine demon sword did not have such a background, but the level of devouring metal was even higher. In the future, it could become heavenly venerable tier ingredient, and had refined a few pieces of divine metal previously, as well as gulped down celestial king blood, so its murderous aura was naturally world-shaking. If Ling Han had killed those ancestral kings of the foreign realm with the divine demon sword previously, the present divine demon sword would definitely have been even more terrifying. Thus, when the divine demon sword clashed with the violet divine staff, the might it unleashed was limited, but the murderous aura was too terrifying. It was definitely not something that a 1st heaven celestial king could withstand. The other 5 celestial kings couldn't help but step back quickly, breaking out in a cold sweat from being weighed down by the murderous aura exuding from the celestial tool. They had lost more than half their battle prowess. If the celestial tool was not so frightening, what need would the celestial kings have to seek it out so tirelessly? Pang! Ling Han was sent sliding backwards, feeling like all the bones in his arm had been shattered. It was completely numb, and he was practically incapable of even raising his arm. In terms of power, it was indeed Yu Wuti that was on top. After all, he was a true celestial king, and a monarch star at that. If he did not have a complete upper hand in terms of power, that would be strange. Ling Han shook his arm, and blood instantly surged, releasing a sound akin to the howl of a dragon. Immediately, he recovered. His physique was not so easily dealt with either. What are you all standing around for? Do you want to reap the harvest without sowing any seeds? Yu Wuti was irritated. The reason he had allied with these 5 great celestial kings was for the sake of dealing with Ling Han, yet now they were actually watching the show from the sidelines. How was that reasonable? Chapter 2460. Battle. With this rebuke from Yu Wuti, the 5 great celestial kings felt unspeakable distress. You both had celestial tools, which could naturally cancel out the murderous aura emanating from the other celestial tool. But what about them? If they had had celestial tools before, how could they have possibly been chased off by Ling Han? They had initially thought that once Yu Wuti unleashed his might, it would be enough to cancel out the celestial tool in Ling Han's possession, and they could then make use of the opening and make their move, taking Ling Han's life. But they had never expected that the shock wave generated by the clash of the 2 celestial tools would actually be so terrifying that celestial kings like them weren't even worthy of coming close enough. They stepped back, and then made their move. Boom, boom, boom. Colossal hands appeared one after another, striking down on Ling Han. Yu Wuti almost died of fury. What is the point of attacking from so far away? It should be known that Ling Han's physique was extremely amazing, and he could only be wounded through continuously attacking him harshly in close quarters. With such a long distance between you, are you guys scratching an itch for him? Ling Han laughed loudly, and charged out, completely ignoring the attacks of these 5 great celestial kings as he launched a fiery offensive at Yu Wuti. His physique was extremely close to the celestial king tier, and it was equivalent to a low-level celestial king on complete defense, and it was constantly kept that way. The long-range attacks of the 5 great celestial kings were only like scratching an itch through the leather of his shoes to him, and could be completely ignored. Pang pang pang. Though he had also been blasted back and forth, he still charged back out completely unscathed as he sliced out at Yu Wuti with his sword. In comparison, though the battle prowess of those bugs inside the insect cave was much lower, firstly, there were really too many of them, and secondly, the insect poison could cut down on the power of his attack and defense, so the threat they posed was actually far superior to the combined forces of these 6 celestial kings. Yu Wuti humphed. However, since things had reached this point, he was in no mood, nor did he have the time to bother with the 5 great celestial kings. He had a strong confidence in himself. He had already stabilized his cultivation at the celestial king tier, so how could it be that he would still be unable to suppress Ling Han? Yu Wuti brandished the violet divine staff, clashing forcefully with Ling Han. His cultivation level was superior, so how could he fear Ling Han? Boom, boom, boom. Every move they made resulted in a forceful clash, and the clashing of the celestial tools released a thunderous noise that could shake the heaven and earth. Furthermore, as the murderous aura surged out of the celestial tools, it even solidified. The divine demon sword was emanating a black aura, while the violet divine staff was emanating a violet aura. It was like the confrontation of 2 oceans. There were ancient beasts galloping out of the murderous aura, and they pounced on their respective opponent. This was not a solid attack, but a spiritual barrage which could cause the spirit of a cultivator to sway. However, both of them were monarch stars, and each had a celestial tool as well, so they were naturally unafraid of the barrage of this kind of murderous aura, yet it was a different story for the 5 great celestial kings. Their hearts were swayed, and they had no choice but to retreat even further. Yu Wuti couldn't help but shout, "Complete trash!" Though the 5 great celestial kings could also cause some disturbance to Ling Han, it really was just a slight disturbance, and the effects were limited. He could only depend on himself. He brandished the divine staff, and struck out aggressively. The reason why he invited the 6 great celestial kings to work together with him was not because he thought that he would not be able to suppress Ling Han, but rather that he wanted the 6 of them to help in stopping Ling Han from fleeing, and that was why they had used Yan Xianlu as bait to trick Ling Han into venturing into this dead end of a valley. They had truly intended to capture Yan Xianlu, but the latter had directly broken through to the celestial king tier at the most crucial moment, and then aggressively charged through their siege and escaped. Half their plan had succeeded, but when it really came down to a battle with Ling Han, things did not progress as smoothly as expected. Stay on your guard. Don't let this brat escape. Xueqi yelled out loudly. This was the only time that the 5 celestial kings could finally be useful. The 5 great celestial kings looked livid, but could not refute him.
Who asked them to be indeed unable to withstand the murderous aura of the celestial tool?
Xueqi moved with full power, his eyes cold. Regulation seemed to have become a part of him as every single movement he made was extremely frightening, and with the addition of brandishing his celestial tool, he was practically a god of war. Ling Han's right hand gripped the sword, and he was completely fearless of clashing head-on with his opponent.
Indeed, his cultivation was considerably inferior, but with how tough his physique was, what did he have to fear?
Meanwhile, his left hand surged with regulations. Fields of lightning surged out, turning into a sea of lightning. Space was sealed off, imprisoned, while time was frozen and slowed. Meanwhile, regulation of slaughter was boosting the divine demon sword. He, too, was proficiently playing around with regulations.
It should be known that he had a shocking number of celestial seed marks in his body. They numbered in the hundreds already, and if every single celestial seed mark matured, that would correspond to the regulations of the Great Tao.
And Great Tao was limited.
Hence, a considerable number of the over 100 celestial seeds were actually duplicates, but there were differences in the minor details. After all, Celestial King Tier had 9 heavens, and celestial seeds, too, could evolve 9 times before finally reaching the pinnacle. Having grasped so many celestial seed marks, Ling Han's practice of regulations had also practically reached its limits. Just as Ling Han had planned previously, he would extract the essence of countless celestial seed marks, and nurture a perfect celestial seed that belonged solely to him. Only such a celestial seed could truly be considered perfect. In the intense battle, Ling Han's appreciation of Great Tao deepened, and he felt an urge to break through, unable to control his cultivation level. This, too, reflected on himself as celestial light endlessly surged from him. There was a Celestial King Tier aura blazing. Humph, you think of breaking through to the Celestial King Tier to resolve the crisis? Xueqi sneered. Even if you undergo the heavenly tribulation, I will still kill you. He thought that it was because Ling Han felt like he could not hold on for much longer, and thus planned to undergo the heavenly tribulation to resolve his crisis. He was determined even if Ling Han was to experience the heavenly tribulation, he would still forcibly kill him. After all, without experiencing the heavenly tribulation to the end, there was no way he could truly reach the Celestial King Tier. Ling Han smiled faintly. If Xueqi was determined to entertain such wishful thinking, the former would just allow him to keep this mistaken perception. Xueqi's offensive became even stronger. He wanted Ling Han to become distracted, and the moment the latter became distracted in his breakthrough, the resulting consequences would be extremely terrifying. Being unable to break through was a small issue, but it was very highly possible that it could wound his essence. The other 5 celestial kings also strengthened their attacks. Like Xueqi, they thought that Ling Han was going to give out soon. Yet Ling Han was extremely calm. A thought flashed through his mind. Perhaps it was time to condense his own celestial seed. He did not have to immediately nurture the celestial seed, but he could try extracting the essence of those celestial seed marks in his body, and begin to walk out his own path. In the future, when he obtained even more and stronger celestial seeds, he would still be able to continue extracting their essence to upgrade that unique celestial seed of his. With this thought in mind, his heart blazed. Boom, a world-shaking change began to take place inside his body. Quang, quang, quang. In his mind, all the celestial seed marks were crumbling and falling into pieces, as if they had been set upon with fiery flames, and were presently melting down rapidly. But in the center of these celestial seed marks, a new mark was silently forming. Though it was only composed of simple strokes, the aura it exuded seemed capable of shaking the heavens for eternity. Boom, dark clouds suddenly rolled out in the skies, lightning flashing closely together. A heavenly tribulation was forming. This was too shocking. Ling Han clearly hadn't formed the celestial seed yet. This was only the basic form of a celestial seed mark, but its appearance caused the heaven and earth to be moved, intending to strike down with lightning to erase him, which showed just how powerful this celestial seed mark was. There was no absolutely perfect and flawless celestial seed in the world. The best celestial seed was one that was the most suited to oneself. Enlightenment flickered in Ling Han's heart. The other celestial seed marks crumbled and collapsed like they were structures that had been corroded by time, and in their midst, the basic form of the celestial seed was silently taking form.
Chapter 2461. A Strange Heavenly Tribulation. Before setting out onto the celestial path, everyone said that a naturally complete celestial seed would be far superior to a celestial seed formed from shards. However, this was not an absolute truth. Ling Han had already obtained enough complete celestial seeds, extracted their essence, and formed a completely new celestial seed. According to the previous theory, this was a kind of weakening as it was actually pieced together from shards. However, Ling Han only extracted their most fundamental essence, and added with his own appreciation, the celestial seed formed from all this was truly strongest for him. And now, the celestial seed hadn't even formed completely yet, but the heavenly tribulation had already arrived. This was enough proof of how amazing the celestial seed that Ling Han would form in the future would be. The heavens were jealous. Clang! An extremely terrifying bolt of lightning immediately struck. Don't allow him to undergo the heavenly tribulation, or all our schemes will result in nothing. Xueqi called out loudly, and rushed into the heavenly tribulation without paying it any mind at all as he brandished the violet divine staff, intending to stop Ling Han from breaking through. Though the 5 great celestial kings did not want to undergo a heavenly tribulation very much, they thought about the secret that Ling Han was hiding.
It was something that could allow the power of a pseudo-celestial king to face a true celestial king head-on. So just how amazing did it have to be?
Their greed got the better of them, and they continued charging into attack while gritting their teeth. Quang, the heaven and earth felt no mercy, and were just to anyone and everyone. If one interfered in the heavenly tribulation of another, they would have to bear their punishment. 6 clumps of dark clouds unleashed power at practically the same moment, and a frightening heavenly tribulation immediately descended. The 6 great celestial kings were hard-pressed.
Interfering in the heavenly tribulation of another, they would definitely be targeted by the heaven and earth and dragged into it as well.
But the heavenly tribulation they sustained would definitely be based on their respective cultivation levels. For example, Ling Han was only a pseudo-celestial king, but the other 6 were true celestial kings, so the heavenly tribulation they suffered would naturally be even more powerful. Though the 6 great celestial kings were still attacking Ling Han, their might was considerably weakened. They were all focusing the greater part of their energy on resisting their respective heavenly tribulation.
Thankfully, what did not disappoint them was that the heavenly tribulation that Ling Han was undergoing was incredibly frightening, and he was thrown back and forth as he was endlessly struck by lightning, the sight of it being too horrible to look at.
Keep it up. We're almost about to kill him. The 6 great celestial kings all cheered themselves on. However, what they did not know was that the reason why Ling Han would look so battered was not because he really was no match for the heavenly tribulation, but rather because he had focused the majority of his concentration on forming the celestial seed mark. The heaven and earth did not really intend to kill him through delivering a punishment. It was an attempt to disrupt him from forming the celestial seed that would be flawless for him. Ling Han naturally would not let the heaven and earth succeed. Hence, he would rather become terribly battered or even covered with wounds all over. He was determined to fully concentrate on forming the celestial seed.
If anyone could cast a look into his mind, they would see that all the celestial seed marks had already crumbled and shattered, but the shards thus produced were dancing.
There were tiny points of light floating, gliding towards the central area. Here, a new celestial seed mark was presently forming, but its main structure did not belong to any complete celestial seed. Ling Han had built it with his own comprehension. This was too immature. How could the comprehension of an individual compare to the heaven and earth?
However, Ling Han was one who had endless contact with void particle energy, the fundamental power of the Genesis world, and he had once been the overlord of a realm himself, though it was only at the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, but that still far surpassed the celestial king tier after all. Now he was using these 2 kinds of experience as his guide to build the main structure of his own celestial seed mark.
How could this not be amazing? Even Ji Wuming could not compare to him. After all, the former had only been a 9th heaven celestial king in his last life, and no matter how powerful he was, he could not cross this boundary, and had his own limits. Crack, crack, crack. The heavenly tribulation was merciless, every lightning bolt being stronger than the last. At the beginning, it only wanted to disrupt Ling Han, but it soon became even fiercer and more intense since the process could not be disrupted, then it would directly erase Ling Han. The power was extremely frightening, and had crossed the threshold of the 1st heaven, forcing Ling Han into dire straits.
All the clothes he was wearing had long since been torn to pieces, lacerations adorned his flesh, and even the aroma of grilled meat could be smelled. But a smile appeared at the corners of Ling Han's lips. He obviously knew this was a trap, and still insisted on barging in. Aside from wanting to kill the main culprits, there was another very important reason: to use the pressure that these people would exert on him as help to take that most crucial step. Ling Han was the type to be more motivated with more pressure. Being ambushed by 6 great celestial kings, he felt a sense of crisis, as well as a powerful displeasure. He yearned to gain greater strength so he could destroy these people. In his mind, the celestial seed mark was becoming more and more complete. A frightening aura was surging out of his body. It was at the celestial king tier. It was clear that he had not advanced into the celestial king tier, yet actually already possessed the image of a celestial king. This was too astonishing. No wonder the heaven and earth would be so furious and determined to destroy him. Because he was an anomaly that looked capable of removing himself from the control of the heaven and earth. Not good, he's going to break through. Yu Wudi was shocked, and brandished his staff even more furiously, practically paying no mind to his own defense at all. The other 5 celestial kings also seemed like they had thrown their lives on the line. If they could not stop Ling Han, the moment he broke through and became a celestial king, it would be practically impossible for them to stop Ling Han from escaping. The 6 great celestial kings seemed to have descended into madness, bursting with their full battle prowess, and madly pouring attacks on Ling Han. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, and allowed the blasts from the 6 great celestial kings and the heavenly tribulation to land on him. He had already reached a crucial point, and could not sustain any disturbance. He had to gather his full concentration. The celestial seed mark was close to forming, but there was still a node left. Once this node formed, the celestial seed mark would take form completely, and could not be shaken. However, if he failed, this celestial seed mark that was close to completion would crumble instantly. Originally, this process could be as long as 10,000 years, a million years, or even longer, but Ling Han wanted to complete it in a short 1 or 2 days, or even shorter time, under such great pressure. Long, half a day passed, and the heavenly tribulation of the 6 great celestial kings was already beginning to disperse, but the tribulation clouds above Ling Han's head were still dense, clinging closely together without any sign of dispersing. There were still lightning bolts striking down madly. This scene stunned Yu Wudi and the others greatly, and they involuntarily stopped their attacks. Shouldn't a heavenly tribulation just last half a day? The heavens would try their utter hardest to prevent any elites from emerging, because the stronger the living beings, the more possible it would be that they could affect the balance of heaven and earth. Thus, every time a living being became stronger, a heavenly tribulation would descend, and stop them from breaking through. But the heavens would also leave a chance of survival. A heavenly tribulation would only last for half a day, and if he survived, that would mean he had gained the approval of the heaven and earth. But why did it seem like this was akin to a difficult birth for Ling Han? Half a day had passed, so why was the lightning still striking down endlessly onto the ground? Was this because Ling Han had offended the heavens, and thus the heavens could not bear the sight of him? Was that why the heavenly tribulation was descending multiplied like this? Yu Wudi and the others exchanged looks. At this moment, they did not know whether they should continue their attacks. All this was too strange. If they angered the heavens, which led to them also having to suffer heavenly tribulation every day, what would they do? If we made another move, would we still be attacked by the heavenly tribulation? One of the celestial kings asked. Ordinarily, this question would seem very foolish. You had already been dragged into the heavenly tribulation, and it had similarly lasted for half a day. It definitely would end later than that of the person whose heavenly tribulation was disrupted, so how could one possibly continue to be dragged in? Yet this situation of Ling Han had never been seen before. The person who caused the disturbance had already finished sustaining the heavenly tribulation, yet the victim himself was still undergoing the heavenly tribulation. But who would have experienced this before, and thus be sure that they would no longer be pulled into the heavenly tribulation should they interfere now? They had to be seeing things. Chapter 2462. The Most Perfect Celestial Seed. Whomever they told this matter to, it was guaranteed that not a single one would believe it, even if the person who had said it was a celestial king, or even if 6 celestial kings swore that it was true simultaneously. Fuck,
How could something so unbelievable happen? Even if you are a celestial king, you cannot treat us like idiots, either. Xueqi was filled with jealousy. He did not know why Ling Han's tribulation would last so long, but the heavenly tribulation represented the jealousy of the heavens. They were so jealous that they did not hesitate from going against their own rules, and deploying an unending heavenly tribulation, which showed just how outstanding and extraordinary Ling Han was. That was the only reason why the heaven and earth did not want him to break through. Xueqi had to stop him. Die! Brandishing the violet divine staff, he charged towards Ling Han again. The divine staff released its might, blasting out a purple halo of brilliance. Ling Han greeted the oncoming attack with the divine demon sword. This was only his subconscious movement. The divine staff was too powerful, and he did not dare to take it head-on even with his physique. He had to block it. Pang! Sword and staff clashed, and Ling Han was instantly sent flying. With a wah, blood was spat out of his mouth. The other 5 celestial kings discovered that the heavenly tribulation did not target Xueqi any further, much to their surprise. This had definitely broken records. He had attacked a person who was undergoing a heavenly tribulation, yet he himself was actually not dragged into the heavenly tribulation, though they had previously already undergone a tribulation. Die! The 5 celestial kings roared as they blasted at Ling Han too. If they did not make their move now, when would they have another chance? This time, the pressure on Ling Han was even greater. Previously, though the 6 celestial kings had also been attacking in unison, they had focused the majority of their energy on opposing the heavenly tribulation. It was different now. They could completely concentrate on their offensive. It should be known that they were all celestial kings, and 5 of them were at the peak stage of the first heaven, and while Xueqi's cultivation level was not all that high, he was a monarch star. His battle prowess did not lose out to theirs, either. What more when he held such a deadly weapon like the violet divine staff, so the threat he posed was massive. Ling Han was completely battered and bruised from the attacks. He had to both face the heavenly tribulation and suffer being under the combined attacks of 6 great celestial kings at the same time. More importantly, he still had to focus the major part of his energy on forming the celestial seed mark. This was practically a mission impossible. But Ling Han's battle spirit was still soaring to the extreme. He enjoyed being challenged and the need to create miracles in impossible situations. Pa, pa, pa. Even if his godly bones were tough, being under such a terrifying barrage of attacks, they still broke, and his flesh had naturally long since been torn apart. Blood covered his whole body, and poured all over the ground. At present, his condition was horrible to the extreme. A few bones jutted out of his body, and his bone marrow was visible. There was definitely no way his family and friends would be able to recognize him now. Yet Ling Han did not feel the slightest bit of despair. On the contrary, his battle spirit soared high, and his fighting spirit burned fiercely. He anticipated the completion of the celestial seed mark. That moment would be the instant that he would turn the tables on his enemies and counterattack aggressively. He used the greatest eternity everlasting physique, and exerted time acceleration effects on himself. An instant was equivalent to several days, or even several weeks. Faster, faster, faster. Boom. His body trembled as he entered into a certain mysterious state. Everything had stopped and become silent. He could clearly see the twisted expressions on the faces of the 6 great celestial kings which were changing slightly bit by bit. It was as if he was removed from this heaven and earth, and become an outsider looking in. He could see the time stream as it slowly unfolded in front of him, flowing towards the future, but connected to the past. However, a mysterious power was sealing it off. He could not cross the river, nor could he walk along the banks, tracing back history or exploring the future. He could only be limited to this state and within this space. Had time stopped? Ling Han looked at the heavens. This was his divine sense flitting. He could see bolts of lightning strike down, but their speed seemed to have decreased to a chilling extent. They could only descend no more than an inch in the time a single breath would take. Enlightenment rose in his heart. Previously, he had added a heavy stroke to the celestial seed mark, and it was his comprehension of the regulations of time. Furthermore, he had activated the greatest eternity everlasting physique, which seemed to have touched on some mysterious state. It was not time that had stopped, but rather the channeling of his divine sense had surpassed time itself. Hence, he could not move his physical body, but it was like his spirit had transcended. He felt an urge to allow his spirit to leave his physical body. In this way, his spirit would be able to roam the heaven and earth without anything holding him back, and would no longer be limited by any kind of regulations, no longer being detained by any powerful being. However, he immediately suppressed this urge. The spirit was rooted in the physical body. If the physical body was lost, the spirit would also soon wilt and die. His heart clenched as he focused on the celestial seed mark. At this time, he could truly concentrate completely on the building of the celestial seed mark. Stroke after stroke, the celestial seed mark would be that bit more complete every time he experienced enlightenment. It was like a precious crystalline tower in his mind, dazzling all directions. 1 year, 10 years, 100 years. Time flashed by. When time had reached over 700 years, that bolt of lightning finally struck him, and was slashed apart by a wave of the divine demon sword. As for the attacks of the 6 great celestial kings, Ling Han estimated its speed, determining that the first attack would probably land in only another 6 years. He continued progressing with his own affairs, as if an instant was an eternity. It was unknown how many years had passed when Ling Han suddenly felt his body relax. A strange power surged out, and the regulations of heaven and earth manifested completely in front of him. It was as if he could just casually pluck any one of them, and turn it into his own weapon. The Celestial King tier. Only a Celestial King would be able to pull on regulations at will, but it was clear he had not advanced into the Celestial King tier, so why had he truly gained the power of a true Celestial King? In a moment of distraction, he leaped out of this state. Instantly, time returned to normal. Boom, the attacks of the 6 great Celestial Kings blasted out madly. Pong, dust filled the air, turning into a mushroom cloud that rushed into the skies. Is he dead? A frightening power surged, and the 6 great Celestial Kings stopped their offensive. The reverberation of the aftermath was too strong, and even they did not dare to barge rashly in. This brat was suddenly dazed for a moment. And if that had not been the case, our final attack might not have succeeded. The 6 Celestial Kings said so. Ling Han had suddenly faltered for a moment previously, and their attacks had thus landed solidly on him. This was extremely strange. Could it be a trap? One of the Celestial Kings asked. You're worrying too much. What kind of trap would have one be blasted straight on by 6 great Celestial Kings? Xueqi also humphed coldly. He was very certain that he had struck solidly with a violet divine staff. With how destructive a celestial tool was, even a Celestial King would die from a direct hit. What more when it was a pseudo-Celestial King that was undergoing a tribulation? Ling Han had to be dead. He's definitely dead. Don't you see that even the heavenly tribulation has stopped? All the 6 great Celestial Kings nodded in agreement. Ling Han could deceive them, but there was no possible way he could deceive the heaven and earth. Now that the heavenly tribulation had abruptly stopped, that meant only one thing: Ling Han was dead. They were all waiting. Once the aftermath of power weakened just a little bit more, they would rush in and pluck Ling Han's spirit. It would only take a little time, and their power as Celestial Kings would definitely allow them to easily gather a dispersed spirit. Boom! Right at this moment, a flame suddenly rushed into the skies, burning fiercely. Even from very far, the intense heat could still be felt. This is... The 6 great Celestial Kings were all silenced at the same time, and then their expressions drastically changed. The rising from the ashes of the immortal Phoenix tribe. A terrifying aura blazed, and a figure walked out of the fiery light. He was of tall, lanky build, and not very sturdy in frame, but the aura he exuded was overbearing without compare, as if he was a heavenly emperor. Ling Han. Chapter 2463. Crushing Celestial Kings. Sorry, I've made everyone wait. Ling Han had already adorned a set of new robes. Through rising from the ashes, his injuries were naturally all gone, and he had recovered to a complete state. Actually, he had no need to die just now, but had an inexplicable feeling that he had to shed his old shell. Hence, he chose to execute rising from the ashes. It was very different. Ling Han only felt like his body was especially light. Great Tao had become extremely clear to him,
as if he himself was Tao, part of heaven and earth itself. If he had to attack anyone, he could just directly grab a streak of great Tao and throw it over, slice it over or slash it over, and nothing could not be destroyed. As for defense, he could immerse himself in great Tao, and no matter how powerful one's attacks were, he himself was great Tao, so what could one do to him? Of course, this was only a misconception. Every celestial king had this kind of ability, and it would have to depend on whoever had a greater and more powerful grasp of great Tao. However, it should be known that Ling Han was still not a celestial king yet. Damn it, he's broken through! A celestial king exclaimed through gritted teeth. That's not right. Yu Wudi's eyes suddenly widened. There are no unusual scenes of the heaven and earth appearing. When a celestial king achieved Tao, there would be a reaction from the heaven and earth. There would be countless auspicious clouds and a fragrance that spread everywhere. But all of this had not appeared. His heavenly tribulation is unusual, so it is also possible that the reaction from the heaven and earth would be unusual as well. And this boy is strange, and we should not use usual logic for him. Or so the other celestial kings said. Ling Han had to have broken through to the celestial king tier. Otherwise, how could he possibly exude the aura of a celestial king? Moreover, if he had not broken through, why would a heavenly tribulation have descended previously? Did you think that the heavenly tribulation was like an uncle that could be invited to come at any time? They all shook their heads. Ling Han had broken through to the celestial king tier, so his battle prowess had naturally soared. Even if the 6 of them joined forces, it would be very difficult. No, it should be that they would no longer be able to stop him. This brat had already been so powerful as a pseudo-celestial king, and now that he had become a celestial king, he would be even more frightening than before. Ling Han set his eyes on the 6 great celestial kings, revealing an intense killing intent. Are you all ready to die? You have but broken through to the celestial king tier. What is there to be so proud about? One of the celestial kings shouted at Ling Han. Xiao, Ling Han darted out. A terrifying power surged, and he arrived in front of that celestial king in an instant. His left hand gripped a streak of great Tao, entwined it around his fist, and shot out a punch. This punch was extremely and extraordinarily fast. That celestial king was not to be trifled with, either naturally, and had already made his own preparations. It was naturally impossible that he would be hit so easily. Immediately, with a furious roar, the sound turned into waves. He, too, grabbed hold of a streak of great Tao and countered Ling Han's attack. Pang! With this blow, that celestial king was instantly sent flying, his body glowing with light. This was not a sign that he was about to unleash his power, but rather that his body had split apart, and this had led to celestial light seeping out of it. When the other celestial kings saw this, they were all stunned, and even Yu Wudi's eyes dilated in shock. Though Ling Han had killed a celestial king before, some of the credit was owed to it being a sneak attack and the fact that the latter had been caught off guard. But this was different. Ling Han's attack had come head-on in a frontal confrontation, bold and straightforward. Furthermore, he had not depended on the might of the celestial tool, either. He had been able to beat a celestial king to the point his body cracked apart with a single punch. Though the victim had not died, and it could not compare to complete destruction, it was still extremely terrifying. How could his battle prowess be so strong? Ling Han was very pleased. Flexing his arms, he felt like he could understand his power clearly. His blood was blazing, and there was an indescribable comfortable feeling about it. At present, he was only short of turning the celestial seed mark into a true celestial seed away from becoming a celestial king, but because he felt that his celestial seed mark could be further completed, he had not rushed to complete the breakthrough. By now, his vitality index was roughly around 5,600 points, which was enough to crush the majority of First Heaven celestial kings. Furthermore, Ling Han guessed that once he truly broke through, his vitality index would reach around 6,800, 6,900, or even close to 7,000 points. I'll take your head first. Ling Han charged over, waving the divine demon sword in hand. He was going to chop off the head of that wounded celestial king. Help me, that celestial king hurriedly shouted, his tone panicked. He had never encountered this kind of crisis. They were clearly both First Heaven celestial kings, yet he could not even withstand a single blow. If he knew that Ling Han was actually still a pseudo-celestial king, he would probably spit out a mouthful of blood.
Xueqi and the others hurriedly moved to assist him. They still felt a sliver of hope, and wanted to again try the might of their combined forces to see if they could suppress Ling Han together. But they immediately knew what despair was, and what incomparable battle prowess was. Ling Han could not be stopped at all. His left hand controlled regulations, and extremely frightening streaks of great Tao descended down on them. Meanwhile, his right hand was waving the divine demon sword, slicing with all kinds of regulations, including time and space. Xueqi was mad with jealousy. He was a monarch star, and he should possess battle prowess superior to the peak stage of the first heaven celestial king tier upon his breakthrough, and after he stabilized his cultivation level, he should even be able to battle a second heaven celestial king. But now, when he had been undergoing a heavenly tribulation, he was disturbed by Ling Han. Even if he had stabilized his cultivation level, his present battle prowess was only at the peak stage of the first heaven, which did not match his status as a monarch star at all. More importantly, when Ling Han had undergone a heavenly tribulation, he too had been disturbed, but his battle prowess had reached the peak stage of the first heaven steadily, and after it was stabilized, it would be an easy matter for him to match a second heaven celestial king. So how could Xueqi not be jealous? Ling Han aggressively attacked that wounded celestial king. After landing 3 punches, that celestial king could no longer fight back, and with a swipe of Ling Han's sword, his head was removed from his body, flying high into the air. Suddenly, the heaven and earth shared grief, and a rain of blood descended. Ling Han's hand held the divine demon sword, his expression aloof and cold. Xueqi and the other great celestial kings were all astounded. The 5 of them had worked together to stop him, yet Ling Han was still able to kill that celestial king easily. What did that mean? If Ling Han was going to target them, it would also be difficult for them to escape unscathed. The moment this kind of thought rose, they all broke out in a cold sweat. Death no one desired it, especially when they were celestial kings. They were noble and highly placed, like they themselves were the heaven and earth. They exchanged looks, and suddenly all of them turned around and fled. They no longer wanted the secrets that Ling Han possessed. The freakish nature of this boy was indescribable, so it was best that they did not have any designs on him. How can there be such a good thing? Ling Han asked coldly. Stretching out his left hand, the great Tao of space was grasped in his hand, and surged towards the 5 great celestial kings. Ensnare! Instantly, the bodies of the 5 great celestial kings stiffened, and they could not advance the slightest inch further. But Xueqi roared loudly, and the violet divine staff unleashed its might. He could not be stopped, and immediately escaped from the restraint. However, he did not have any intention of bothering with the others at all. Instead, he immediately ran, brandishing his staff. Xueqi! The 4 great celestial kings roared in fury, but Xueqi only acted as if he had not heard them, and ran even faster. Ling Han thought for a moment, and did not give chase. Xueqi could run, but he couldn't hide. However, he would leave the celestial path soon after, so it was best that he first dealt with these 4 celestial kings. Die! Ling Han waved the divine demon sword, sword chi dancing and dazzling the skies. Fight it out with him! The 4 celestial kings all released powerful attacks, their vitality soaring. They had temporarily escaped the constraints, and their battle prowess actually soared even further. This was an incredible spike in battle prowess that they had paid a very exorbitant price for, but it definitely could not be maintained for long. Furthermore, there would be very strong Xueqi too. Ling Han was unconcerned. He had a grasp of Great Tao, and various regulations of the Great Tao were channeled by his will. The divine demon sword itself was glowing as seal after seal took form. This was his forging of the divine demon sword so that it would become a true celestial tool. Chapter 2464. The Final Stop. One person was facing off against 4 great celestial kings, and he actually still had the leisure to forge his celestial tool. No one would believe this even if they heard about it. What kind of celestial kings were these? Weren't they a little too weak? But that was the truth. In just over a dozen moves, the forehead of one of the celestial kings had been pierced, his mind destroyed, and his blood essence absorbed fully by the divine demon sword. He himself had become a corpse. Ling Han's might could not be blocked. The remaining 3 great celestial kings were all shocked. There were indeed differences in strength among celestial kings, but there should be completely no problem if a celestial king wanted to flee, unless there was a suppression factor of around 3 heavens' difference in cultivation level. Yes, in front of Ling Han, they actually didn't even have the chance to flee. If they had known this, how could they have possibly schemed against Ling Han? But it was already too late for regrets by now. Even if they were willing to beg for mercy, would Ling Han spare them? They could only pour all their power into this battle. Celestial kings naturally had their pride as well. The 3 celestial kings all burst out with their strongest techniques. At this moment, they still managed to improve their situation by a considerable extent. Anyone who could become a celestial king would naturally be a prodigy among prodigies. It was possible for only a single celestial king to emerge from 10,000 ascending origin tiers, which showed how difficult it was to become a celestial king, and once they had become a celestial king, their battle prowess was also beyond compare. The 3 great celestial kings all pushed their battle prowess to the fullest, their roars ringing out like thunder. Even if they would die, they would take Ling Han down with them. This was the pride of a celestial king. Unfortunately, their valor was only short-lived. The gap in strength was really too wide, so how could their idea possibly be realized? Ling Han aggressively suppressed them. The 3 great celestial kings died one after another in only a few hundred moves.
He bathed in the celestial king blood as he calmed the killing intent in his heart. His eyes closed slightly.
Yu Wuti had fled, which made Ling Han feel slight regret, but it was fine. Unless Yu Wuti was willing to stay on the celestial path for the rest of his life, he would not be able to escape death, even if he clung to his old man all day every day. Very soon, Ling Han dismissed this slight regret, and focused on the celestial seed inside his mind. Without advancing into the celestial king tier, he had already gained battle prowess above the peak stage of the first heaven. The quality of this celestial king was already indescribable. Ling Han took a deep breath, and opened his eyes once more. He headed out of the canyon. When he had left the canyon, he released 7 short and 3 long whistles. Not long after, the Empress and the others shot forth from a distance. "How was it?" the Empress asked. She did not care whether Ling Han had saved Yen Xianlu or otherwise, as long as Ling Han himself was fine. Ling Han nodded. "This was a trap. I've killed 6 celestial kings, but Yu Wuti has escaped."
Something seems different about you,"
Hunyo exclaimed curiously as she sniffed Ling Han continuously. Ling Han laughed. "I have already formed my own celestial seed mark. Though it has not reached the pinnacle of perfection, my battle prowess has still increased countless folds." The Empress and the others all looked tempted. Though they had not seen how powerful Ling Han had been, there were already 6 celestial kings that had been killed forcefully by Ling Han. Was that not awesome enough? "Nyo wants to break through too," Hunyo called out loudly. She was very envious. Ling Han nodded. "You can first form the celestial seed mark, as long as the celestial seed is not allowed to sprout. You could still polish the celestial seed to further perfection at any time. Then let's just stay here for some more time." They did not return to Summoning Cloud City, but found somewhere to stay nearby as the 4 of them floated in great Tao. Ling Han was smoothing out his celestial seed mark. Every day, enlightenment would come to him.
If it were not because he would not be able to leave through the transfer formation in the heart of the celestial path unless he himself became a celestial king, he would not want to break through in the short term.
They would only form their celestial seeds on the celestial path.
There were a lot of celestial kings that actually only formed their celestial seed mark on the celestial path, and it was after leaving the celestial path, after tens of millions of years, or even over 100 million years before they finally broke through.
But by now, Ling Han did not have any time to retreat on the path he had trodden. He could only travel towards the transfer formation in the heart of the celestial path. Thus, the requirement was that he definitely had to become a celestial king. They all had the greatest eternity everlasting physique. This was too helpful for their cultivation. Only 11 years had passed, and bewitching Maiden Ro was the first to break through, becoming the first celestial king in their group. Her vitality index soared to around 5,600 points in a single stroke, with her becoming the 2nd strongest elite among them. Not many years later, Little Terror also broke through, becoming a celestial king tier great beast. However, though the little guy had broken through, it had also been very dangerous.
The punishment of heavenly tribulation had surpassed the level of a normal celestial king, and was even close to reaching the second heaven, striking the little guy to the point that its spirit was almost destroyed. Even if Wally had modified Little Terror's genes, it had still been targeted by the heaven and earth of the celestial realm when it had been breaking through, but it was also because it had been modified that it had ultimately survived. Another 20-plus years went by. Both the Empress and Hu Niu had formed a celestial seed mark which belonged uniquely to them, respectively, and their vitality index suddenly soared greatly, both reaching around 5,500 points. In this manner, their team was really completely of the Celestial King tier battle prowess, and it was battle prowess that could practically crush all First Heaven Celestial Kings at that.
Let's go. They headed towards the heart of the celestial path. There was a supreme great opportunity hidden here.
There was a flawless celestial seed, and there was even a way that would allow the locals to leave the celestial path.
To the celestial kings here, the temptation was endless.
However, it was said that this area was extremely dangerous.
Previously, there had not been many who had left the celestial path through there. The majority had not even managed to cross the sea. When it was about time, they had simply retreated through the path they had come. As Ling Han and the others journeyed, they stabilized their cultivation level and smoothened their celestial seed mark. Over 70 years later, they had arrived at the centermost area of the celestial path, which was also the last area. It was called the Holy City. It really was a city. It was incredibly large, but it had long since turned into ruins. At the innermost part of the city, there was a transference portal, and they could leave the celestial path through it. In the past, it was no issue to pass through the city. Though there were wild celestial king tier beasts roaming around the ruins, those that needed to use the transference portal would also have to be celestial kings themselves. Even if they were outmatched, it would not be difficult for them to take a detour and leave. However, the present situation was a little different.
A great many complete structures had suddenly appeared among these ruins, and they had extended more than a dozen times over very quickly.
These newly appeared structures were all complete, and there were also frightening restrictions on them that even Third Heaven Celestial Kings would feel wary of. In fact, there were also some plants that were extremely mysterious and possessed an inconceivable might. It was rumored that the method to leave the celestial path that the Celestial Kings yearned so longingly for lay within. Thus, this place had also become a battlefield between Celestial Kings. Everyone was occupying territory and advancing step by step forwards. It was said that every step had been made through bloodshed. By now, it was no longer possible for them to return the way that they had come. Hence, outsiders were only left with the path to become Celestial Kings here, try their hardest to charge into the heart of the ruins, and use the transference portal to leave. Ling Han and his group stopped in their tracks as they surveyed this city ahead of them. Through the eras, it had been all ruins, but now there were tall towers rising up.
They were well-proportioned and beautifully decorated, and were enshrouded by a mysterious halo of light which exuded an air of nobility.
"Everyone, may I have a word?" A person smilingly walked out of the city. There were no walls in this city, and the majority of the structures in the vicinity had been largely destroyed. This person had actually been seated on a short wall, and only jumped down from his perch upon spotting Ling Han and his group. He was a middle-aged man, and looked amiable, wearing a broad smile on his face. "What is it?" Ling Han asked. Chapter 2465. Strange Ruins. "I am Zhao Xuelong, greetings." This person bowed the moment he came over. As the saying went, one couldn't strike a smiling person even if enraged, what more when they did not have any grudges against him. Ling Han smiled. "What is it?" "The four of you must want to use the transfer formation here, and return to the celestial realm, right?" Zhao Xuelong smiled slightly. His gaze was mainly focused on Bewitching Maiden Ro because he discovered that only Bewitching Maiden Ro's body was enshrouded with peculiar light. The other three were only pseudo-celestial kings, so she naturally was the leader of this group. He paused slightly. "At present, massive changes have taken place in this place that used to be ruins. Do you see those multiple complete towers? They are covered with restrictions and possess boundless might. Even a celestial king would frown at this power."
His words took a turn as he pointed to a purple vine in the distance, and said, "And there are also these plants that have suddenly appeared.
They, too, are extremely frightening. Once, a celestial king had once been ensnared by them,
and he was forced to dismember himself before he could finally escape.
Furthermore, a great fortune has also appeared here, causing everyone to be keen and restless.
Should whoever charges in completely by himself, the only possibility would be that he would be crushed into nothing by the various forces.
Zhao Xuelong broke into a smile.
Thus, my suggestion to all of you is to cooperate with my master, and we will charge together into the heart of the ruins, each taking what we need.
So this was a negotiator. Ling Han laughed.
Why do I feel that with our well-trained and powerful army, we can completely counter soldiers with arms, and water with an earth we're one?
Zhao Xuelong's expression darkened involuntarily. He had not thought that Ling Han would actually be so shameless.
He gave a dry cough and continued, Sir, my words have already been said very plainly. Merely those towers and plants that have suddenly appeared are already very troublesome. What more when there are also countless celestial kings contending?
You have to know the people who are calling the shots here now at present are all third heaven celestial kings. He had deliberately paused here, expressing a hidden meaning. Did you hear that? They are all third heaven celestial kings, and how powerful and domineering are they? You are a mere pseudo-celestial king. What qualifies you to contend with them?
Ling Han was also of a mind to tease him.
It's fine. We are only passing by. I'm sure that there will be no celestial king that would make things difficult for us.
Milord, milord.
Only now did Zhao Xuelong realize that he had been mistaken.
This man was the leader that made the decisions in this group.
He hurriedly switched to a more respectful attitude.
To be honest, in these ruins presently, those plants would release a strange luster, which would greatly weaken one's own battle prowess. However, inside those complete towers, one would be able to resist the restraints placed on one's battle prowess from the plant's light.
Thus, to enter into these ruins, you would have to occupy one tower after another, and advance slowly onwards with that as your base camp. My master has already occupied 17 towers, and is approaching the end of the first area. We can be considered the #1 camp.
Lord and ladies, please consider it seriously.
Only now did Zhao Xuelong reveal some crucial information, bringing Ling Han and the others a slight surprise. As it turned out, something like that was happening in these ruins. Please join my master's camp, and let us win the future together. Zhao Xuelong took another low bow. Ling Han looked towards the three women, and said, Let's check out the situation first.
The three women naturally would not object, and nodded.
Zhao Xuelong was overjoyed, and hurriedly made an inviting gesture.
Lord and ladies, this way, please. He led the way ahead, guiding the four of them into the ruins.
The moment they entered, Ling Han and the others immediately sensed a strange power assault them. When they lowered their heads, they were all enshrouded in a layer of purple light. It glowed like precious jade, and appeared very beautiful, but it was like a layer of restraints had been wrapped around them, greatly affecting their battle prowess. And with every second that passed, this layer of purple light became slightly thicker, which also caused the pressure they felt to gradually increase. They could probably unleash only 10% of their battle prowess by now, as the greater part of their power was focused on resisting this purple light. Zhao Xuelong saw this, and said, Everyone, now do you believe that I speak the truth? What are you so proud about? Hunyo humphed, and shot over a kick. Pang, Zhao Xuelong instantly stumbled onto the ground, his face landing solidly on dirt. He hurriedly scrambled to his feet, his eyes glaring angrily at Hunyo, but when he recalled how the aura that Hunyo emanated was far superior to himself, his anger instantly disappeared without a trace. In the end, Hu asked him to speak cheekily. He obediently led the way in front of them, and not long after, a complete tower appeared ahead of them. There were people standing guard in the surroundings, and when they saw that it was Zhao Xuelong, they relaxed slightly. Old Zhao, you've worked hard this time, managing to recruit 4 people, 3 pseudo-celestial kings and a lady celestial king. Someone called out towards Zhao Xuelong. Zhao Xuelong smiled fakely, offering a slight twitch of his lips as a response. Ling Han examined the tower carefully, and saw that there was a layer of light enshrouding all around the tower, but it was not the purple light. Instead, it was a gentle white luminance, making it seem as if it was standing alone independent from this world. They entered, and the people inside would naturally not stop them. Once they had entered, the purple light on them immediately dispersed rapidly. It really only took 1 or 2 breaths' time, and they had already recovered their full battle prowess.
Ling Han and the others all nodded. No wonder the celestial kings were having trouble with every step, advancing only through occupying one tower after another along the way towards the central area. That was because they would not be able to hold on much longer by the time they reached this place if they did not do so.
Please follow me. Lord Yang should already have gotten the news, and is prepared to meet the four of you, Zhao Shuilong said. This was a 7-story tower. They were presently on the first floor, and with Zhao Shuilong leading the way, they soon arrived at the 7th floor. The moment they exited the stairs, they saw a man was seated upright and mighty, facing them. When he saw the four of them ascend, he did not stand, and merely nodded as he introduced himself. I am Yang Gang. His eyes were only focused on bewitching Maiden Row, as if Ling Han and the others did not exist at all. This was understandable. That was because only bewitching Maiden Row was enshrouded in a peculiar light, but there was nothing unusual about Ling Han and the others. After becoming a celestial king, with the entwining of the Tao of heaven and earth, a streak of strange light would manifest. This was the most obvious sign of a celestial king. Hence, Yang Gang could tell with a single look that Ling Han, the Empress, and Hun Yo were only pseudo-celestial kings, even if the aura they exuded was very strong, and was practically at the celestial king tier. Bewitching Maiden Row immediately showed a hint of displeasure. Pointing at Ling Han, she declared, "This is my husband, and these two are my close sisters." Yang Gang was slightly surprised. With bewitching Maiden Row's circumstances, she was completely capable of seeking a third heaven or even stronger celestial king as her partner. Why would she lower herself to become the wife of a pseudo-celestial king? He thought for a moment, and realization dawned on him suddenly. Those that had walked here but had yet to break through to the celestial king tier were basically aiming for that rumored perfect celestial seed, and those that would have gotten wind of it definitely came from powerful backgrounds. Hence, it was logical that a celestial king would be willing to throw herself at him. Yang Gang felt jealous. Why was it that he did not have a celestial king tier partner? He felt internally displeased, and it showed through his expression as well. This is the first line of defense to enter the ruins. It decides whether our supplies would be able to be delivered in time, and is extremely important. Thus, please stand guard here with me. By then, when the path to the central zone is unblocked, the four of you may leave easily. Chapter 2466. Enemy Attack. Ling Han was naturally not going to agree. They had come here not merely for the sake of leaving the celestial path, but also to see for themselves that perfect celestial seed, though they no longer needed to use this celestial seed to break through to the celestial king tier. If they stood guard here, what would be left for them by the time the path to the central zone was cleared? Furthermore, with such bizarre events taking place here, Ling Han was sure that a perfect celestial seed was definitely not the only treasure that had appeared here. Hence, he naturally had to set out to the front lines, and with his personality, there was no way that he would want to enjoy a leisurely, relaxed life at the back. The four of us still plan to go to the front lines and shine, Ling Han said smilingly. Yang Gang's expression immediately darkened. I am responsible for the daily proceedings here. What right do you have to object? He was a king of the celestial path, and had always been accustomed to being proud. Naturally, he would not revere a so-called ninth heaven celestial king or even heavenly venerate. So what if you had a powerful background? In Yang Gang's eyes, that was only that. Ling Han shook his head. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. Since Brother Yang insists, we will take our leave. He could be considered as having settled on a slight compromise. Otherwise, he would have directly conquered this tower. Yet Yang Gang was even more displeased. Who do you think you are? You are just a mere pseudo-celestial king, and you actually dare call me Brother Yang? Are you worthy of addressing me as Brother Yang? He moved menacingly, and grabbed out at Ling Han. Scram! Bewitching Maiden Row rebuked, and also sent out a palm strike of her own. Her fair, delicate hand looked as gentle and smooth as jade, but the attack it delivered was like the waves of a stormy sea. She grasped the great Tao of time, and pressed it down on Yang Gang. Yang Gang's attack immediately slowed down at a visible rate. Involuntarily, he paled in shock. After reaching Celestial King tier, all regulations were equal, and there was no such thing as any regulation being stronger or weaker. Hence,
Even the regulation of time that used to be superior and powerful was no different as compared to regulations of metal, water, and others now. But when bewitching Maiden Ro pressed down with the great Tao of time, he was affected. What did that mean? Since there were no differences in status among regulations, that would depend on whose grasp of regulations was deeper and stronger. He was inferior to bewitching Maiden Ro. Impossible. Only living beings below the celestial king tier could embark on the celestial path. In that case, even if bewitching Maiden Ro had broken through immediately upon entering into the celestial path, it would only have been around 8,000 plus years by now. Over 8,000 years, and her level in the celestial king tier had already surpassed his own. He himself had earnestly cultivated for over an epoch in the first heaven, and finally managed to attain the peak stage of the first heaven. What gave her the right to be stronger than him immediately after her breakthrough? Yonggang roared in fury. Boom, a celestial king tier chi gushed out of his body. He was using his full power, and finally managed to struggle free from the chains of time that bewitching Maiden Ro had exerted on him, regaining his mobility. Bewitching Maiden Ro did not follow up on her attack. The purpose of her palm strike had only been to force Yonggang into retreat, and this was also because Ling Han did not want to become completely hostile with him. Thus, she refrained from going to extremes in meting out punishment. Ling Han stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Brother Yang, are you still going to stop us? Humph, as a man, you actually have to depend on a woman to move. How shameless. Yonggang uttered coldly, yet dared not to make another move. Bewitching Maiden Ro's strength was superior to his. If he attacked, it would merely be seeking his own humiliation. He looked at bewitching Maiden Ro. Could it be that this was the monarch tier that outsiders spoke of? Her battle prowess was too strong. The Empress's expression couldn't help but darken. This man truly had a bad mouth. They had already compromised slightly for him. Was he so determined to court death? Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Right at this moment, exclamations suddenly rang out from below, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Ling Han cast a look outside from a window of the tower, and saw that there was indeed an attack. Their numbers were not few, over 100 people, and it was 2 celestial kings leading them. The others were only in the ascending origin tier. Ha! Ling Han appeared slightly surprised. Those ascending origin tiers were one thing, but there was clearly an outsider among the 2 celestial kings. He had just broken through not too long ago, so his aura wasn't very stable yet. It was clear from first glance. To leave this place, and for the sake of the potential treasure that could have appeared in the central zone, the outsiders had also joined this war. Furthermore, they were playing the role of lackeys. Yonggang's expression changed drastically. The enemy had actually mobilized 2 celestial kings. This indicated that they were determined to conquer this tower. Furthermore, it had not just been a few years that he had stood guard here. He had to have been thoroughly investigated, and now that the other party had mobilized 2 celestial kings, they should have complete confidence that they could take him down. Thankfully, the party on defense had an extremely strong advantage. As long as they prevented the other party from entering into the tower, the latter would have to sustain the restraints of the power of the ruins, causing their battle prowess to drop drastically. In a battle of 1 against 2, it was not definite that he would lose, either. He glanced at Ling Han and the others, and hesitated for a moment. Finally, gritting his teeth, he did not say anything. If bewitching Maiden Ro was going to attack him, he would not be able to stop her, either. Thus, he simply chose to act as if they were not there. He stood guard on the 7th floor, his celestial king divine sense reaching all corners. No matter which direction the enemy attacked from, he would still be able to react in time. Outside, the 100-plus ascending origin tiers were charging towards the entrance to the 1st floor, and the 2 celestial kings had split ways. One attacked from upwards, while the other invaded from downwards, planning to charge into the structure. It was really too disadvantageous if they stayed outside. Boom, one celestial king was wrapped in ice, his battle prowess suddenly shooting countless folds upward. He had broken through Yonggang's defense, and directly charged inside. Ling Han was surprised. Previously, this celestial king had clearly ignored the restraints of the purple light. This was illogical. Yonggang was astonished. You people have truly gone to great expense for this, that you could bear to use even the subduing purple fruit. Under the suppression of the purple light, cultivators would not be able to unleash more than 10% of their original battle prowess, and according to the deductions of the celestial kings, this purple light was exuded by those plants, but as long as they consumed the fruits that these plants bore, they would be able to temporarily ignore the restraints of the purple light. Of course, this truly was just temporary. It lasted for a pitifully short time period. Thus, as there were effects of subduing and dispelling the restrictions of the purple light, these fruits were naturally called subduing purple fruit. But it should be known that these plants were extremely troublesome, and even celestial kings could possibly experience a great loss against them. So how difficult would it be to obtain a subduing purple fruit? These fruits definitely had to be stored up, to be consumed only when the great opportunity arose in the future, yet they had now been used here, which showed how resolute and determined the other party was to conquer this place. Yonggang, since you already know how determined we are, leave, one of the celestial kings shouted.
Yonggang humphed. Even if I fight the two of you, it is not assured that I will lose. Moreover, I have already sent out a signal, and the reinforcements will arrive shortly. When he said these words, he tossed a glance purposefully at Ling Han and his group, indicating, "You guys heard that too, right? The reinforcements will soon arrive, so you had better not think of any wild ideas." Those two celestial kings also glanced at Ling Han and his group, and when they discovered that there was another celestial king there, their eyes involuntarily narrowed. Fuck, there was an error in their intelligence. Why was there another celestial king here? Yet Ling Han waved a hand and said smilingly, "No need to bother about us, just go ahead and do whatever. We are only passing by and will not interfere." Grandmaster Ling, that outsider celestial king called out in spite of himself. He was an emperor tier of the Eastern Celestial Realm, and the fact that he had managed to break through to the Celestial King tier itself was praiseworthy. Ordinarily, emperor tiers would need to walk the celestial path 3 times and above to be able to break through, and if they could not succeed within 3 times, unless they were willing to eternally stay on the celestial path, there would definitely be no chance that they would become celestial kings. Chapter 2467. Conquering a Base for Fun. Grandmaster Ling. The other celestial king and Yonggang both turned to look at Ling Han. This was only a pseudo-celestial king. How was he worthy of being addressed as Grandmaster by a celestial king? The other celestial king looked towards Ling Han, and said after a slight pause, "Friend Zhu, this is." There were 2 celestial kings on the other side, and their operations would possibly be affected. However, if their companion could make the celestial king on the other side betray his side, in a battle of 3 against 1, their chances of victory could not be any more assured. This outsider celestial king bore the surname of Zhu, and his name was Xueqi. He chuckled, and made introductions for both sides while introducing himself as well. "Grandmaster Ling. I am Xueqi. This is Lu Ming, friend Lu. Friend Lu, this is Grandmaster Ling, the youngest 5-star alchemist in the history of our Eastern Celestial Realm, and is presently also the only 5-star alchemist." "Oh, so it is Grandmaster Ling." Lu Ming hurriedly bowed towards Ling Han, appearing very polite. There weren't any 5-star alchemists on the celestial path, so everyone naturally did not know how they were supposed to treat a 5-star alchemist, but for the sake of Xueqi and bewitching Maiden Row, Lu Ming was willing to see Ling Han as an equal. Of course, if he knew that Ling Han's vitality index was actually as high as 5,600 points, and his strength was far superior, this Grandmaster Ling would be even more polite and respectful. As he saw it, to lower himself to the same level was already giving Ling Han enough face. What else could he ask for? Ling Han could tell what he was thinking, and only responded with a slight smile. "Friend Lu." Yonggang frowned. If these few people cultivated relations, his situation would become worse. Though it was impossible that he would die, there was a 99% chance that he would not be able to keep this base. He hurriedly said, "Grandmaster Ling, there was some neglect in my reception just now. Please bear with me." All he had to do was cause a delay. As long as he could delay until his reinforcements came, he naturally would not have any more lingering worries. Ling Han chuckled. "I have already said before. We are only passing by and will not interfere. You guys just continue doing whatever you will." Since that is the case, Lu Ming immediately looked menacingly towards Yonggang. As long as bewitching Maiden Row did not interfere, they, 2 celestial kings, naturally had a full chance of victory. Yang Gang could also accept this result. He was sure he could delay until reinforcements came. Boom! Lu Ming was the first to move.
He sent out a palm strike with his right palm, extracting the regulations of water, which turned into a colossal spear of ice, stabbing towards Yang Gang.
Zhu Zixi did not stand idly, either. He, too, extracted regulations, and black flames immediately rose from the ground as gravity soared countless times in a split second. Even a celestial king would have trouble moving. Yang Gang frowned. The cooperation between them was quite good. One was responsible for restraining the target, with the regulations of gravity limiting his mobility, while the other was responsible for attacking. The ice spear was cold and menacing, capable of freezing even celestial king blood. Fortunately, Zhu Zixi was a weakness. He had the aptitude of an emperor tier, but because he had just broken through to the celestial king tier, his battle prowess was far weaker than Yang Gang's. Hence, this kind of limitation was not hard for Yang Gang to dispel.
With a burst of power and a flash of gleaming silver, he aggressively charged out and shot out a punch.
A golden sword formed out of nowhere, greeting the spear of ice. Boom! The golden sword and icy spear clashed, and both immediately crumbled, turning into regulations which returned to the heaven and earth. Yang Gang was slightly weaker. After all, he had been disturbed by Zhu Zixi, and could not unleash his full battle prowess. This result was also within the expectations of the three great celestial kings. Hence, none of them showed any hint of shock or disappointment, and battle arose once more. The three great celestial kings battled fiercely. Yang Gang was constantly at a disadvantage, but he was also defending very stubbornly.
Going by the look of things now, there was absolutely no problem for him to last a few or even over a dozen days.
Hence, even though Yang Gang was clearly being suppressed, his expression was completely calm. It would only take around 2 days at most for the reinforcements to arrive. Hee, did you think that there would be reinforcements? Lu Ming smirked. I don't mind telling you. This time, we have mobilized a total of 6 celestial kings, and we are attacking 3 of your bases at the same time. Now the 2 nearest bases should be waiting earnestly for reinforcements as well, so just give up. Hearing these words, Yang Gang couldn't help but look stunned. If it was really like what the other party said, the situation was really too bad. Humph, the peaceful underworld celestial king has only recruited 18 celestial kings, and has now sent out 6 of them all in one stroke. Doesn't he worry that his base would be left undefended? Yang Gang asked darkly. The more terrible his situation was, the more he could not allow himself to panic. Lu Ming laughed loudly.
There is no need for Brother Yang to worry about that.
The peaceful underworld celestial king was the strongest celestial king of Lu Ming's party.
He was at the peak stage of the third heaven, and naturally belonged to the strongest ranks on the celestial path. The strongest celestial king of the party that Yang Gang belonged to was the 9th descent celestial king, who similarly was at the peak stage of the third heaven. Without this kind of cultivation level, they would not be worthy of commanding a troop of celestial kings.
Yang Gang frowned deeply. What gave the peaceful underworld celestial king the right to be so daring?
It should be known that they were all contending, and judging by the present situation, whoever had hold of more bases would possess a stronger say.
Now that the peaceful underworld celestial king had sent out 6 celestial kings, their base naturally had to be absolutely empty. No matter what, it did not seem logical. Hee, the peaceful underworld celestial king can ally with the Crimson Snow celestial king, so how could it be that the 9th descent celestial king can't? A voice suddenly rang out from outside, and a man enshrouded in a peculiar light strode inside from the window, a calm smile adorning his face. Friend Qian. Yang Gang was immediately overjoyed. This newly arrived celestial king was named Qian Xiang, and was also of the line of the 9th descent celestial king. Of course, he was not a subordinate. Everyone had only formed a temporary alliance for the sake of contending for that treasure that would help them leave the celestial path. Qian Xiang. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed instantly. Not only had the former's arrival thrown a wrench into their plans, the words that the other party had said had also shocked him greatly. The reason why the line of the peaceful underworld celestial king had been able to send over 6 celestial kings was because they had formed an alliance with the line of the Crimson Snow celestial king. But they had never imagined that the 9th descent celestial king had also formed an alliance of mutual attack and defense with other forces. Their previous advantage was now completely gone.
Ha ha ha.
Yang Gang laughed loudly. Come, come, come. Since you guys want a battle, let us battle to the fullest. Zhu Zixi's eyes turned, and he said, Grandmaster Ling, we are all residents of the Celestial Realm, so please lend me a helping hand. The peaceful underworld Celestial King only wishes to leave the celestial path, and that is the same for myself as well, so we decided to rake in some treasures while we were at it. However, we definitely have no desire for that perfect celestial seed. Thus, as long as Grandmaster Ling is willing to lend us some help, I have great confidence that I can convince the peaceful underworld Celestial King to gift this celestial seed to Grandmaster Ling. Hearing his words, both Yang Gang and Qian Xiang frowned. Now it was a battle of 2 against 2, and the number of celestial kings on both sides was equal, but if Ling Han and his group joined either side. Mainly, it was about bewitching Maiden Ro. She was a celestial king, and whichever side she joined, that side would be able to gain a complete advantage. Grandmaster Ling, we can offer such conditions as well, Yang Gang said immediately. Naturally, there was no way he could allow Zhu Zixi to pull a celestial king over to their side. Grandmaster Ling, please believe in me. Grandmaster Ling, we have greater sincerity. Both sides were stretching out an olive branch to Ling Han. Of course they had ulterior motives. Their main purpose was to get hold of the Celestial King tier battle prowess represented by bewitching Maiden Ro. Ling Han smiled and said to the Empress and the others, why don't we too conquer a base for fun? Chapter 2468. Little Terror Unleashes Its Might. When Ling Han's words fell, both Zhu Zixi and Yang Gang immediately showed hints of anger and confusion in their expressions. You guys only have a single celestial king in your party, and it's one that has just broken through recently at that. And you actually want to conquer a base? What do you think a base is? Is it something that you can conquer just by thinking about it? Even Third Heaven celestial kings had experienced multiple bloody battles before finally managing to take occupation of them. Because when these towers appeared, they would be wrapped with various plants, which had great power. These needed to be cleared away before the tower could be occupied, and it was not something that could be done by one who was not a Third Heaven celestial king. And you guys want to take advantage of a Third Heaven celestial king? Isn't that just courting death? Bases could not be lost. Others might not know it, but celestial kings who had stayed here for a long time like them knew it very well. When midnight came, a mysterious light would shine from within the tower, allowing them a glimpse of supreme great Tao, with a mysterious fragrance that would advance their cultivation levels. Though this would only last for a short while, it was still equivalent to the celestial kings cultivating earnestly for several million years. And what was most important? This could help them break through, even. Moreover, the more towers occupied, the stronger this light and fragrance would be, and this was the fundamental reason that the celestial kings had gathered into alliances together. Why did they not simply choose to gather themselves all together into one group, then? To speak of nothing else, merely the joint forces of these Third Heaven celestial kings should be capable of sweeping aside everything else before them. It was because this mysterious light and fragrance could only be shared among a limited number of people. Even if they occupied an extremely great number, it would only boost the effects of the light and fragrance, and could not increase the number of people that it could be shared among. Hence, a single team could only have 12 to 20 celestial kings at most, or everyone would have to take turns. Under this kind of prerequisite, everyone could only split ways and battle on their own, with a Third Heaven celestial king gathering a great many Second Heaven and First Heaven celestial kings under his authority as their leader. Additionally, the closer they were to the central area, the higher the grade of the towers was. Thus, only lower-tier celestial kings would be guarding the outer circles, while Third Heaven celestial kings would be fighting for those better towers. But the closer to the central area, the smaller the territory became, and the number of towers was definitely decreasing as well. Hence, not only would they have to battle those mysterious plants, they also had to clash with powerful competitors. The fighting was extremely cruel, and the Third Heaven celestial kings could not free themselves to interfere in the battles that were going on behind the lines at all. Hee hee, Grandmaster Ling is really such a joker. Zhu Zixi hurriedly laughed, playing mediator. Ling Han's face bore a calm smile. Though his knowledge was limited, he definitely did not believe that celestial kings were sent out as guards just for the sake of a stepping stone or supply station, and this had even drawn the invasion of 2 other celestial kings. There had to be some other reason. Then things were simple. He only had to conquer one, and he could slowly study to find out the reason. Wasn't this place a place where power was the only rule? Weren't the towers here conquered through battle? There are indeed times that I would joke, but this clearly is not one of them.
Ling Han swept an eye over, and said to Xueqi, "As an outsider myself, I will give you a word of advice.
Join our side and become my subordinate. How about it?" Zhu Zixi's expression instantly darkened. Though he had addressed Ling Han as Grandmaster, that did not mean he really respected Ling Han all that much.
He had only thought that he might have a need of Ling Han's skill in alchemy in the future, and that was why he had been polite.
It should be known that Zhu Zixi was a celestial king by now. To speak of nothing else, weren't the words celestial king enough? Not only did this Ling Han refuse his kindness, he actually wanted to recruit him as a lackey. Just how far would he go to humiliate him?
He declared menacingly, "I'm afraid I will have to disappoint Grandmaster Ling's kind offer.
I have no intentions of becoming anyone's lackey." He had broken through on his first trip into the celestial path, which showed that his natural talent was still extremely high. Then, his future accomplishments would not just be limited to first heaven. In fact, he had hopes of reaching even third heaven and fourth heaven. How could he lower himself to become someone's subordinate? Ling Han sighed. This guy really thought that the former was insulting him.
It should be known that even monarch tiers like Yan Xianlu and Yi had willingly become his lackeys, and their future accomplishments would be becoming a fifth heaven celestial king, at the very least.
Forget it. Ling Han had only spoken on a whim himself, and had not really wanted to get someone so mediocre as subordinate. Since Grandmaster Ling is so overbearing, why don't we call a truce first, and eliminate Grandmaster Ling and his party? Yang Gang suggested. These words were directed at Lu Ming, however. Sure. Lu Ming nodded smilingly. There was only a single celestial king in Ling Han's group. If the four great celestial kings joined forces against them, they would be able to very quickly suppress or chase them off so as to prevent Ling Han's group from benefiting from the conflict between them. This time, Zhu Zixi did not say anything. He thought that this was what Ling Han had asked for. A 5-star Grandmaster was indeed very powerful in the celestial realm, but on the celestial path? The four great celestial kings immediately turned from enemies into allies. At the very least, they were completely on the same page regarding dealing with Ling Han and his group first. Ling Han smiled, and tossed Little Terror out. Go! The little guy had gotten impatient long ago, and had been baring its fangs.
Now that it had gotten Ling Han's permission, it immediately charged out in a flurry of its strong broad legs, its mouth open, emanating a chilling aura. The four celestial kings felt a chill rise up their backs at the same time, as if their opponent was not a tiny beast that was only 2 feet tall, but an extraordinary beast of the ancient age whose killing intent soared to the heavens, as if it was a killing machine. They each made their move, wanting to stop Little Terror from coming closer. But what was Little Terror? A battle beast that the heaven and earth of the foreign realm had deliberately created to deal with the dark inverse realm. It was an existence that was even more terrifying than a war soldier. Not only was its battle prowess that of a monarch star, no questions about it being able to sweep aside all peers, its defense was also incredibly tough. In fact, it could even be compared with the physique that Ling Han had formed through cultivating the indestructible heaven scrolls. The moment this kind of battle machine broke through to the celestial king tier, what would it mean? Its vitality index would be as high as 4,600 points, and its defense was something that would drive even a first heaven celestial king to despair. Pang, pang, pang. It directly ignored the attacks of the four great celestial kings. When they landed on it, only a series of dazzling sparks were created. They could not harm it in the slightest. Little Terror charged towards them, opened its bloody gaping mouth, and bit at Lu Ming. Lu Ming hurriedly grabbed hold of Great Dao and whipped it outwards, yet Little Terror snapped it in half, and still determinedly directed a bite at his lower body. It could not be helped. Little Terror was too short and tiny, so it could only aim at this position. Lu Ming's face was livid. If Little Terror bit off his asterisk, how would he still have the face to see others in the future? Yang Gang and the other great celestial kings moved at the same time, blasting at Little Terror. Pang, the combined forces of 3 great celestial kings still held some power, stopping Little Terror's figure slightly, which allowed Lu Ming to escape this calamity. Little Terror was enraged. This was its first battle since becoming a celestial king,
and it had actually not come out on top. It charged out again, extremely vicious. So what if the 4 great celestial kings joined forces? They could only escape in a panic, with Little Terror hot on their tails. Ling Han nodded. Little Terror was truly a crore that had been purposely created by a realm through a back door. It was extremely impressive, and was created for the sole purpose of battle. However, precisely because of that, it was very limited as well, as its intelligence was slightly low. Otherwise, if it could cultivate like Ling Han and the others, its battle prowess would definitely be even stronger. Ling Han could not be too discontented. This kind of Little Terror was already very powerful. As his thoughts wandered, the 4 great celestial kings were already scrambling all over the place with Little Terror pursuing them, and could no longer withstand it. Finally, they had no choice but to jump out of the window and flee. Chapter 2469. Yielding. Ling Han did not tell Little Terror to pursue them. They had no great grudge between them, and their conflict was merely for the sake of contending for a tower, so there was no need to fight over it to death. He cast out all the subordinates of the other 2 celestial kings, and then conducted a thorough search. Why does this seem like a precious tool? After a very long while, Ling Han came to a conclusion had discovered a structure that was akin to the core of a precious tool inside the tower, and a spiritual mark could be engraved on it, making it into your own. However, the spiritual mark of another was presently left here. It should belong to the 9th Descent Celestial King. Ling Han dared not be careless. Though he was very strong, he had not become a Celestial King yet, after all. A 3rd Heaven Celestial King was still too strong for him, and he cautiously touched the spiritual mark. Boom! An ancient, aged intent immediately rushed towards him, turning into a gray-robed man inside Ling Han's mind. He was just in his 20s, and looked dashingly handsome, but age and maturity that came from seeing through the world of mortals seeped from his eyes. The 9th Descent Celestial King. Ling Han smiled faintly, clasped his hands, and greeted, "Greetings, Lord 9th Descent." The 9th Descent Celestial King also smiled. "Since I have manifested in your mind, it means that you have already occupied this base." Ling Han nodded. "That's right. However, it is one matter for you to conquer this base, but a completely another matter to see if you can take possession of it," the 9th Descent Celestial King declared proudly. "Though I am only a sliver of divine sense, you are but a 1st heaven yourself. You have not advanced into the Celestial King tier." He saw how there was a celestial seed that had not taken form yet in Ling Han's mind. Its existence meant only one thing, and that was Ling Han had not broken through to the Celestial King tier yet. The 9th Descent Celestial King was extremely shocked. He could clearly feel that Ling Han's divine sense was incredibly strong, and had definitely crossed over the threshold of the Celestial King tier, but Ling Han himself had not broken through to the Celestial King tier yet. There was an extreme strangeness about this. What in the world was going on? Ling Han asked seriously, "If Lord 9th Descent is willing to part with it, and disperse this sliver of divine sense on your own volition, then I would owe my lord a favor." "How about it?" If a pseudo-celestial king actually dared pose such a question to a 3rd Heaven Celestial King, it would practically make others laugh themselves to death, but the 9th Descent Celestial King did not feel the slightest bit amused. Instead, he was seriously considering the matter. After a while, he suddenly smiled. "All right, I will gift this base to you. However, I also hope that you don't invade one of my other bases next time." As he saw it, though Ling Han's present battle prowess was below his notice, he was a man of great ambition, and was not satisfied with such a small place like the Celestial Path. He wanted to obtain a great opportunity, and make his way into the Celestial Realm. In that case, just how frightening could someone who had not yet attained Celestial King tier but already possessed the battle prowess of a Celestial King be? Ling Han's future accomplishments were definitely boundless. After weighing the pros and cons, he was willing to use a base to trade for a favor from Ling Han. Xiao, this sliver of his divine sense, immediately departed, shooting towards the heart of the ruins. This Celestial King was really quite interesting. Ling Han smiled. If the 9th Descent Celestial King was not willing to yield, Ling Han would not fear a battle, either. After all, the other was only a sliver of divine sense, so just how inconceivably strong could it be? Ling Han imprinted his own divine sense on this tower. When he had left behind a sliver of divine sense,
He suddenly felt that he seemed to have gained a connection with this tower, allowing him to obtain a considerable amount of information. Ling Han shockingly discovered that the Black Tower, which had been in slumber all this while, suddenly shook slightly, but immediately, no further movement could be detected.
Strange.
Was this the Black Tower just waking up for a short while in the midst of slumber, or was it because he had taken possession of this tower?
Otherwise, this was really too coincidental.
But he had only taken ownership of a tower, so why would it cause a reaction from the Black Tower?
Though it was an incredibly weak reaction. Never mind for now. Ling Han spoke to the three women.
Later, when midnight came, a bizarre phenomenon would occur, and if they cultivated at that time, the effects would be greatly increased. The midnight here referred to the shift of day and night of the celestial path. Hence, this kind of change would only take place once every 3 days in actuality. They were only 18 hours away from midnight, and had to wait patiently. When the time came, a streak of light shot out from the top of the tower, ignoring all the levels of obstruction, and penetrating all the way through to the first floor. At the same time, a peculiar fragrance was also wafting in the air, causing one to feel like they were about to sprout wings and fly. Ling Han and the others all extracted the light, smelling the fragrance, and suddenly felt the celestial seed in their bodies was rapidly growing. Bewitching Maiden Rose's celestial seed mark had already sprouted and grown. Thus, this was most helpful for her. Her cultivation level was rapidly increasing, and because their celestial seed marks had not formed yet, the assistance it provided for Ling Han and the others was far below the one Bewitching Maiden Rose enjoyed, though there was ultimately some help. They could only decide to immediately advance into the Celestial King tier if they wanted more. Only Little Terror did not get the slightest bit of benefit. It belonged to an alternative cultivation system. Even if Wally had done some modifications for it, it did not form any celestial seed while breaking through to the Celestial King tier, so there was naturally no way for it to benefit further. This kind of benefit did not last very long. After around 30 minutes had passed, the light suddenly disappeared, and the peculiar fragrance was also swiftly dispersing, and could no longer be smelled.
Are we going to continue charging ahead? The Empress asked.
The deeper in, the greater the benefits of this tower, but there would also be more towers, and they, too, could generate some amazing benefits. But there were only 4 of them, so what could they do even if they conquered another tower? Without adequate manpower, there was no way for them to keep it in their possession. If they were concerned for the front, they would not be able to concern themselves with the rear. No wonder the 9th Descent Celestial King had previously sent people to recruit passers-by. After all, there were only a few people with Celestial King tier battle prowess, and they were in dire need of replenishment. Should we also recruit some helpers? Ling Han and the others decided to wait for another while longer. With their present battle prowess, they were still not strong enough to contend with Third Heaven Celestial Kings, so even if they went into the heart of the ruins, it would be completely useless as well because that was above their pay grade.
In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed.
They had obtained the benefits of the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance 5 times, causing Ling Han and the others to rapidly complete their celestial seed mark. Meanwhile, Bewitching Maiden Rose was advancing strongly towards the middle stage of the first heaven. Initially, this process would take a few 100 million or even billion years, but who asked Bewitching Maiden Rose to cultivate a time celestial physique? Others could only cultivate for a while, yet she could have a time extension of over 100 times.
How could this be compared?
Another few days later, Ling Han shockingly discovered that there were presently 5 people coming together.
5 Celestial Kings.
Had the peaceful underworld Celestial King been displeased with the failure of his first invasion, and had thus sent 5 Celestial Kings in a second attempt? However, even 4 Celestial Kings working together had been driven into a tizzy by Little Terror. So what was the use of having an additional Celestial King? When these 5 people had come a bit closer, Ling Han couldn't help but be surprised, because he recognized all 5 of them. Yi Yan Xianlu, Cheng Zixin, He Xinjue, and Fu Zhou, they were all members of the alliance.
Ling Han laughed and leaped out.
Brother Ling! When Yi and the others spotted Ling Han, they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, filled with pleasant surprise. Come, 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 come in quickly. Ling Han beckoned them inside. There were restraints of the purple light outside, which would cause a massive drop in battle prowess. Only the towers here were capable of resisting this kind of pressure. The group entered into the tower,
and spoke of their respective experiences. They were all filled with danger, especially in the case of Yan Xianlu, who had been targeted and almost captured by 7 great celestial kings Yu Wudi had been part of. "Brother Ling, you didn't fall for it, did you?" Yan Xianlu asked. When Yu Wudi and his group had attacked him, they had spoken a few scattered words about planning to use him as a trap against Ling Han. Chapter 2470. Reunion. "It's all right." Ling Han shook his head, smiling. "Brother Yan, you need not be bothered about it. Aside from Yu Wudi, I have killed all the other 6. Yan Xianlu was stunned. Even when he had broken through to the Celestial King tier, he could only escape, but Ling Han was clearly still a pseudo-Celestial King, and actually said that he had killed 6 of the Celestial Kings. This was too exaggerated, wasn't it? In a situation when the gap between cultivation levels wasn't too wide, it was as difficult as ascending the heavens for a Celestial King to kill another Celestial King. But was Ling Han the type to boast excessively? "Brother Ling, you are too extraordinary." The 5 great Celestial Kings could only be impressed. Ling Han smiled slightly. If he broke through to the Celestial King tier, his battle prowess would soar to the peak stage of the 2nd Heaven Celestial King tier in terms of regulations, and once the upper limit of his cultivation level was lifted in terms of body art, who knew just how strong he would be? This could only be known after he had advanced into the Celestial King tier. Speaking of the benefits this tower offered, Yi and the others were all overjoyed. It had not been very long since their breakthrough, and they were in need of stabilizing their cultivation level. This would be the perfect place for them to cultivate. "We will go to the next tower, and after we conquer it and engrave a similar mark, there will be a resonance between the towers. By that time, you guys can make your way there," Ling Han said. He had just been worrying about having no one to guard the tower for him. "All right." Yi and the others did not refuse. Ling Han and his group departed, setting out towards the heart of the ruins. However, they did not progress on a straight path. Because of his promise to the 9th Descent Celestial King, Ling Han did not plan to target the territory of the Celestial King. Otherwise, that would be really going too far, and would cause the Celestial King to return from the front lines just to suppress them. At present, they were still no match for a 3rd Heaven Celestial King. Under the restraints of the purple light, the battle prowess of Ling Han and his group fell drastically, but there was one exception. Little Terror. It could not benefit from the peculiar light or peculiar fragrance, but the restraints here had no effect on it, either, because it belonged to a completely different cultivation system. Ahead of them, a great tree appeared. This giant tree was extremely extraordinary. Though it was only 300 meters tall, the roots that protruded from the ground were like dragons, filled with power. The roots were all purple in color, with a slight translucent look to them, as if they had been carved from purple jade. Its full crown of leaves was like a multitude of spears, exuding a menacing killing intent. And in between these leaves, there were some fruits that were as red as fire. They were subduing purple fruits. After consumption, one could resist the purple light for a short while, and the effects of subduing purple fruit were really great in this area. Ling Han and the others approached. No matter what, they had to prepare some subduing purple fruits for themselves. Shwa, shwa, shwa. It was like the great tree had come to life. Its leafy crown swayed gently, and several hundred leaves instantly shot towards Ling Han and his group at an astonishing speed. These leaves were shaped like spears in the first place, and now that they were shot out, they grew with the wind, and became 9 meters long, looking like dark iron. Ling Han took a step forwards, with both hands stretched out. He casually grabbed a streak of great Tao, and turned it into a shield that stood protectively in front of himself and the 3 women. The leaves descended, and this shield formed of regulations immediately began to rapidly weaken at a visible rate, exhausting its energy at a shocking rate. Pang! The shield very quickly reached its limits, and crumbled resoundingly, but Ling Han had already grabbed another streak of great Tao, and continued to form a shield blocking in front of him. They had already come close. The Empress and the others charged out, and even Little Terror rushed over, opening its wide mouth, and bit at the dragon-like roots of the great tree. Boom! Root after root darted out of the ground, and moved to ensnare the Empress and the others as if they were serpents. Every root was covered with purple seals, exuding a shocking might. Battle immediately burst out. Though the Empress and the others were very strong, this great tree was even more extraordinary. It was said that only a third heaven celestial king could destroy the plant and pluck the fruits, which showed just how strong it was. Furthermore, there was purple light seeping all over this place, restraining everyone's strength, and causing the great tree to become even harder to deal with. Thankfully, Little Terror's battle prowess was not affected.
Its eerily white sharp teeth bit madly, and chewed off a considerable amount of wood shavings, so the great tree had to use the greater part of its power to deal with Little Terror instead.
Actually, Ling Han's body art was not affected by the purple light, either, but the upper limit to his cultivation level had not been lifted yet, so his body art was only limited to 4,999 vitality index points, which could barely be considered to reach the Celestial King tier. In this place, there was limited room for him to perform. The present he had returned to his old habits of using regulations as his main source of battle prowess.
5 great individuals of Celestial King tier battle prowess fought against the great tree together, yet they did not gain the slightest bit of an upper hand.
The great tree was really too strong, and would occasionally shoot out countless leaves, using them as arrows to inflict injury, which was difficult to defend against. Fuck. Could it be that this damn tree has an endless amount of leaves? It hasn't become bald even after fighting for so long. Ling Han couldn't help but complain.
Though the great tree was densely covered with leaves, shooting out several hundred of them with each attack, it should already be completely stripped bare after a few thousand times. But look, it was still lush and leafy, and did not show the slightest sign of becoming bare. After fighting for half a day, the great tree suddenly shook, and dropped a few fruits, making no further move to attack.
What did that mean? Not playing any longer. Ling Han and the others stopped as well. Bewitching Maiden Row picked Little Terror up. The little guy was still biting onto one of the tree's roots, unwilling to let go. Though there are only 4 fruits, the sincerity is enough. Ling Han picked up the fruits, and distributed one to each of them. The great tree had not been outmatched, but rather chose to yield. It should be because it did not want to waste time on them. Could it be that this tree had intelligence? Ling Han smiled at the great tree. Brother tree, many thanks. The great tree swayed, as if casting disdain on him. The 4 of them continued onwards. There were actually many plants here, but the majority of them had not borne fruit. Hence, Ling Han and the others had no intention of attacking them, either. They continued onwards, and after traveling for half a day, a 7-story precious tower appeared ahead of them, exuding a glimmering green light. There were people in the tower, and they all drew weapons, appearing to be on guard. Are you the subordinates of the 9th Descent Celestial King? Ling Han called out. This was diplomacy before violence, to avoid from beating on the wrong people. Those guards exchanged looks, and shook their heads at the same time. One of them brandished the weapon in his grip. All of you please leave. They did not flip out, mainly because they had spotted a bewitching Maiden Row, who was enshrouded in a peculiar ray of light. This was the symbol of a celestial king, so it was natural that no one dared to be careless. There was definitely a celestial king standing guard here, yet he had not spoken all this while, and that was naturally because he had no wish to blow up the matter. As long as Ling Han and his group were willing to leave, he would definitely take no further action. Ling Han nodded. It's great that you aren't. I'd be sorry if I conquered another of his bases. He strode over, showing no signs of anger. Halt! Halt! Those guards all yelled, but they were not too nervous. After all, Ling Han was not a celestial king, and he was alone. What need was there to take him to heart? Seeing Ling Han approach, the guards moved at the same time, brandishing their respective weapons as they attacked Ling Han. Ling Han cracked a grin, and power surged. Pang! It was only a single punch, and those guards fell all over the ground, like the flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. He took another step, and he already entered the precious tower. Xiao, a frightening aura surged out, and a celestial king flew downwards. His gaze was set on Ling Han, revealing a hint of coldness. He did not speak, but instead directly moved to strike at Ling Han. Chapter 2471. Clash of Divine Sense. When a celestial king moved, how could a non-celestial king block it? Hence, this celestial king was naturally very disdainful. A mere ascending origin tier actually dared to barge in all on his own. What could this be but an act of suicide? The Celestial King's focus was mostly on bewitching Maiden Row. She was the one that could possibly become a strong opponent for him. He definitely could not allow her to enter. As long as she was restrained by the purple light, he would enjoy an absolute advantage over her. He could see the fist that Ling Han was shooting out towards him, yet it was not even worthy of increasing his notice. This was but a mere ascending origin tier. Even if he had reached the height of a pseudo-celestial king tier, so what? Given the word pseudo, there was no way his battle prowess could be considered equal to a true celestial king's. Pang! The attack landed, and a frightening clash took place. That celestial king instantly looked astounded. He was actually inferior to the other party in terms of power, and had been pushed backwards in a continuous retreat from the impact. He felt like his insides had been twisted and turned, and the discomfort was indescribable. Impossible! He looked at Ling Han in astonishment. This young man was completely motionless, his expression calm, as if punching a true celestial king back was a completely common, ordinary matter in his eyes, and it was not worthy of any excitement at all. And in this moment of his opponent's faltering, the Empress and the others had also entered the precious tower. "Who are you?" that celestial king asked, filled with surprise. How could this young man possess such astonishing battle prowess? Ling Han smiled slightly. "I am Ling Han, and this place presently belongs to our Ling Alliance now. Do you submit?" That celestial king naturally would not submit, but merely Ling Han alone was enough to suppress him. What more when the other side had a celestial king as well? He hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Please offer some guidance, sir." If he was forced away with just a single exchange, he would be dissatisfied, and he would not have the face to see others in the future, either. That was too cowardly. "Come on then." Ling Han crooked a finger. That celestial king took a deep breath, and spread out both hands, extracting a black broadsword formed of great Tao. It was 9 meters long, and exuded a blinding light. He looked at Ling Han, and then stabbed his sword towards him. Boom! Regulations of metal surged out, and a murderous aura spread. Ling Han was completely unconcerned. He still shot out a punch. Pang! The fist landed on the black sword, and the black sword immediately crumbled, turning into pieces that danced in the air. That celestial king retreated continuously, right until he was forced to stop when he reached the wall. He looked at Ling Han in shock, waves of astonishment surging in his heart. If it was claimed that he had previously underestimated Ling Han, then he had indeed exerted his full effort this time, yet he was still no match for Ling Han. The gap in strength could not be more obvious. "Thank you for the guidance." That celestial king clasped his hands towards Ling Han. Immediately, he leaped out, leaving swiftly. Merely Ling Han alone was enough to blast him to the point that he could not even fight back, so if bewitching Maiden Row was added into the equation, there would only be one result if he kept up the battle with no move to retreat, and that would be death. He had come to fight here firstly to become stronger, and secondly for the sake of leaving this prison. How could he be willing to die here? Ling Han chuckled. This celestial king had tact. Otherwise, Ling Han would not have minded dyeing the divine demon sword in blood again. Very quickly, he found the control post of the precious tower. He inserted his divine sense, and immediately a sliver of divine sense took human form, looking coldly upon Ling Han, his might weighing down like a mountain. A pseudo-celestial king? This figure naturally was a celestial king, and he was a third heaven celestial king at that. He was slightly surprised. The person that had conquered one of his bases was actually someone that had not even advanced into celestial king tier yet. A mere pseudo-celestial king. Could it be that he did not fear that he would be destroyed by his divine sense? Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, "I am Ling Han. Greetings, Lord Celestial King. You dare to covet my base?" This celestial king demanded loudly, very overbearing. Ling Han sighed. It looked like this celestial king was not as amiable as Ninth Descent. He showed his fists. "Lord Celestial King, since your divine sense has appeared here, doesn't that speak volumes enough? All right then, let's skip the nonsense. We should both be very busy, so just bring it on." That celestial king couldn't help but be enraged. A mere pseudo-celestial king actually dared to speak with him in this manner? However, how could someone who had attained the third heaven celestial king tier lack intelligence? He frowned slightly. "You are slightly extraordinary.
This celestial seed is very extraordinary.
That is natural. This is a perfect celestial seed that belongs to me.
Ling Han nodded, without any modesty at all.
That celestial king's eyes were cold. No matter how extraordinary you are but a pseudo-celestial king still. Moreover, even if you advanced into celestial king tier, there would still be an unknown distance between the two of us. If I wish to suppress you, one move is all it will take. Ling Han laughed loudly. Dare I ask what is your title, my lord?
I am
Dark Frost. That celestial king declared proudly. Ling Han nodded. All right then. I will just aim for your bases subsequently. The Dark Frost celestial king almost died of fury. Just how arrogant was this brat?
He exclaimed menacingly. You no longer have any future ahead of you.
He moved.
Though this was just a streak of divine sense, so the strength that could be unleashed was limited, this was a third heaven celestial king after all. It was just a casual palm strike, and it had stimulated a terrifying power of regulation, which turned into countless spears of ice that blasted out madly in Ling Han's mind.
Humph, are you allowed to take charge in my territory? Ling Han's divine sense also manifested his original form, blasting out towards the Dark Frost celestial king. His fists shot out in a series of punches, and those ice spears were instantly blasted into smithereens. It was only now that the Dark Frost celestial king experienced a shock. Though he was just a sliver of divine sense, and his battle prowess not even 10,000th of the battle prowess of the original, it was enough to suppress a peak stage first heaven celestial king, yet now his attack had been blocked by a pseudo-celestial king. Just how inconceivable was this? Ling Han broke into a grin. How about it? My battle prowess is not bad, right? The Dark Frost celestial king humphed. Only as so. If my real form was here personally, killing you would be a piece of cake. Ling Han spread out his hands. Since you say so, there is definitely no way I can allow this sliver of your divine sense to return, my lord. The Dark Frost celestial king almost laughed in spite of himself. Though Ling Han's battle prowess was not too weak, it was completely impossible for him to be able to stop this sliver of divine sense from returning to the main body. Moreover, he had no plans to return to the main body and just simply hand over this base to Ling Han, either. Brat, your future accomplishments may be boundless, but just because of this arrogance of yours, there is no possibility that you can live that long. The Dark Frost celestial king moved again, both hands grasping a long spear that was formed from the regulations of water as he swept it out in an attack at Ling Han. Ling Han drew up both his fists to greet this incoming attack. As long as it was not a real celestial tool, he naturally had no fear of a direct clash. Boom, boom, boom. The two fought fiercely. The Dark Frost celestial king was much stronger. Merely a sliver of his divine sense could suppress a peak stage first heaven celestial king, and his vitality index had probably reached over 4,600 points, not much worse than that of Ling Han himself. But the problem here was that this was just a sliver of the Dark Frost celestial king's divine sense, after all, and was considered unrooted, so just how long could he battle for? Half a day later, the Dark Frost celestial king realized that it was not good. His battle prowess was completely exhausted. Without the presence of the main body, his battle prowess could not be replenished, but Ling Han's battle prowess was still endless. This battle between the two of them was completely unjust. He did not want to die here. Though this would not have much impact on his main body, this sliver of divine sense had still obtained a lot of information, for example, about how freakish Ling Han was. He definitely had to be killed, or would ultimately become a major problem. Xiao, his figure darted out, intending to leave Ling Han's mind. Ling Han humphed. You entered my mind without my agreement, and now you want to leave. Would it really be that easy? Chapter 2472. Offending a Third Heaven Celestial King. The Dark Frost Celestial King smirked coldly. If I wish to leave, can you detain me? He broke through aggressively, and was just about to burst out of Ling Han's mind, but just when he arrived at the boundary, he was suddenly bounced backwards. It was as if there was an invisible wall blocking his way. The Dark Frost Celestial King was not surprised that he would be blocked. This was Ling Han's mind, and everything here obeyed Ling Han's every single thought. But the problem was that he was a Third Heaven Celestial King, So how could Ling Han block him? Ling Han strode over.
I have already said that if you behaved politely, you could naturally leave calmly, but you insisted on courting death, and battled me for so long.
And now you actually want to leave?
His mind had been tempered through the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Upon his active command, it was like a city protected by a wall of metal and a moat of boiling water to a first heaven celestial king.
It could not be shaken.
I don't believe you,
Dark Frost Celestial King yelled, and rushed forwards once more. How could Ling Han allow him to do as he liked like this? Ling Han pounced and attacked the Dark Frost Celestial King, not giving him the chance to make any move. They were both manifestations of divine sense at present, and had no such thing as vital points. Instead, their entire body was their vital point. They would be slightly wounded with every attack, and with countless attacks accumulating, the Dark Frost Celestial King's exhaustion was already so serious that it was difficult for him to even maintain this form. He swayed unsteadily, and could disperse at any moment. The Dark Frost Celestial King roared in fury.
The value of this sliver of divine sense actually lay in bringing back intel.
Losing it would have no effect on the battle prowess of the main body, but if a sliver of divine sense of a third heaven celestial king was killed by a pseudo-celestial king, how could he bear with that? But circumstances prevailed over men. No matter how he shouted, it was useless.
Just like Ling Han had previously said, if he had chosen to leave at the very beginning, with his full battle prowess, he naturally could have succeeded, but now that he was at the end of his line, he still wanted to leave.
Impossible. Ling Han moved successively. Though the Dark Frost Celestial King was resisting very stubbornly, what was the point?
He had finally been killed, and released a roar of defiance, but that was the only thing he could do. In the distant heart of the ruins, the Dark Frost Celestial King suddenly stiffened, and was almost hit by a green vine that was thousands of meters long. Thankfully, there was another third heaven Celestial King beside him, and moved to help him just in the nick of time, helping him to resolve this crisis.
Otherwise, he would definitely be slightly injured.
Friend Dark Frost,
what is wrong? The other Celestial King asked.
This was presently an intense battle with their enemies, and you actually became distracted at this point in time.
The Dark Frost Celestial King frowned.
One of my slivers of divine sense has suddenly disappeared.
The other Celestial King frowned as well.
There is actually someone that can prevent your divine sense from even returning.
The Dark Frost Celestial King nodded.
I can sense that this divine sense was left behind on the controls of a base in the outer circle.
Could it be that a powerful Celestial King has circled around behind us? The other Celestial King was in slight disbelief.
Though that was merely a sliver of divine sense, its battle prowess had reached the peak stage of the first heaven, and could not be destroyed by someone who was not a second heaven Celestial King at least. The battles here were so intense that all the second heaven and third heaven Celestial Kings were the absolute main force in battle. What force would actually have the ability to deploy first heaven or second heaven Celestial Kings to steal towers from behind them?
The battles here are more important.
No matter what, we have to conquer this precious tower first, and then I will go and handle this matter, the Dark Frost Celestial King said.
The two great Celestial Kings raised their heads at the same time. There was an 18-story precious tower ahead of them. It was completely golden, and shone with a glimmering celestial light. But there was also a massive vine entwined around the precious tower. This vine was thousands of meters long, and had countless roots, which were presently battling with a great many Celestial Kings. Its battle prowess was extremely frightening.
And in the surrounding 5,000 km, there were 11 other towers that were similar, and this kind of great battle was similarly playing out at their respective locations.
After Ling Han killed the Dark Frost Celestial King's divine sense, he naturally would not be reserved, and used a sliver of his divine sense to lay down a mark in replacement. Instantly, he could feel the first base far off in the mountains. There was an indescribable resonance.
Wang,
the black tower trembled slightly again. If the first time was only a coincidence, the second time definitely had a reason behind it. Why had the black tower suddenly reacted? Could it be that there was some treasure that could help the black tower recover here? It was not impossible.
It was said that there was a great opportunity that had appeared here.
A flawless celestial seed was only one part of it, and there was also a method that could allow the local Celestial Kings to leave.
Added with the structures here being able to help a Celestial King progress rapidly, it might be that there really was something here that could help the Black Tower recover.
Something at the heavenly venerable tier. Ling Han immediately felt keen. Just what could this be?
The four of them settled down here, and when midnight came, they instantly saw light wash down from the top of the tower, with a peculiar fragrance wafting everywhere.
The four of them hurriedly absorbed the benefits contained within. There was really some slight difference now.
The two precious towers were resonating with each other, which considerably increased the density of the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance.
Roughly estimating, it was a 20% increase. No wonder all the celestial kings wanted to conquer more structures. When the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance had disappeared, Ling Han couldn't help but feel discontented. He declared, "Looks like we have to conquer more bases." The three women all nodded, similarly filled with fighting spirit.
"We'll wait for Yen Xianlu and the others to deploy some people over." Because of the apparent change, there was no need to inform them. Yi and the others should know that Ling Han and his group had conquered another base, and there was a mysterious resonance between the two, so it would definitely be no problem for them to locate this base.
Ling Han and his group only had to wait patiently for a few days.
True enough, a mere 2 days later, Yi Yen Xianlu and He Xinjue had already arrived. At present, they had as many as 10 beings with Celestial King tier battle prowess. Thus, they could be generous and leave 2 Celestial Kings on guard at every base. After another day's wait, and one more time of cultivation with the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance, Ling Han and his group, along with Yi, set off together. In any case, they were already enemies with the Dark Frost Celestial King, so they just advanced in a straight path. Rather than lightly offending a few Third Heaven Celestial Kings, it would be better for them to heavily offend one of them. On their way, there were a considerable number of plants that had not been cleared yet. Some were short and stubby, no more than a foot tall, while some were hundreds of meters tall, brandishing long vines, as if they were demonic creatures. This caused Ling Han and his group some trouble, but they were all Celestial Kings after all, so they still managed to pass through without any mishaps. Close to 3 days later, they arrived in front of a small palace wrapped in green light. The palace only had a single story, and was 30 meters tall, while its width was 300 meters. The palace doors were wide open, with 2 men standing guard, and it was unknown how many people were actually inside. When they saw how there were 2 Celestial Kings in Ling Han's party, those 2 people's expressions immediately changed drastically as they called out hurriedly. Immediately, a Celestial King appeared. He blocked the entry point as he looked coldly at Ling Han and his group. "This palace already has an owner. Please take a detour." He only had to occupy the entrance and stand in their way, and he could ensure that he would be in a state of full battle prowess. They were both First Heaven Celestial Kings, so how could it be that he would be no match for 2 opponents whose battle prowess had weakened by 10-fold? Yi strode over, and raised his fist. "We are here to snatch territory. Let's fight then." He rushed out, and immediately unleashed his full battle prowess, his attacks harsh and powerful. However, while he was a monarch star, he had just advanced into the first heaven after all. Furthermore, his battle prowess had been weakened further by 10-fold. He could not match the Celestial King in front of him, and could not break through his defenses at all. "Little terror, go." Ling Han smiled. The deadline of 3 days was close at hand. He had no wish to waste another chance of absorbing the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance. Chapter 2473. Consecutive Conquests. Little Terror pounced out. It was not affected by the purple light here, so there was no decrease to its battle prowess. Hence, it was overwhelmingly powerful. That Celestial King paled in shock. He had never expected that this little beast's battle prowess would be so astonishing. He did not know that Little Terror was unaffected by the restraints of the purple light here, and instead wondered just how many times over would Little Terror's battle prowess be further boosted if they were fighting inside the structure. Little Terror unleashed its might. How could that Celestial King still manage to sufficiently guard the entrance? Instantly, they aggressively burst through, and brought their battle into the palace. By that point, Yi's battle prowess was fully unleashed. The powerful strength of a monarch tier surged out fiercely as he worked together with Little Terror. In a few moments, they sent that Celestial King flying out of the palace, leaving him fleeing for his life in a sorry state. Ling Han once more proficiently found the control post here. Then, releasing his own spiritual power, he took the initiative to invite the enemy in.
Wang, a sliver of divine sense took form, and appeared within Ling Han's mind. It was the Dark Frost Celestial King. "Hey, we meet again," Ling Han greeted. This sliver of divine sense had been left behind by Dark Frost Celestial King a very long time ago, so he did not know anything that happened afterwards. Naturally, he was very confused. What did the other party mean by it again? Then he was greatly enraged. A mere pseudo-celestial king actually dared to touch his territory.
"Nothing but a mere pseudo-celestial king. You are truly courting death," he declared disdainfully.
This reaction was completely the same as the first time.
As expected of the same person having the same personality, he would react in the exact same way.
Ling Han's expression was rather strange. If he swept through 10 of Dark Frost Celestial King's bases in a row, and the latter's divine sense would have this kind of reaction every single time, wouldn't it be very funny?
"Come battle then." He couldn't be bothered to waste any more words.
This scene had already happened once previously, so what was the point of having it acted out again?
He took the initiative to charge out, stretched out his hands, and grabbed several streaks of regulations, turning them into a saber, spear, sword, and halberd, and blasting them towards Dark Frost Celestial King.
A mere pseudo-celestial king actually has grasp of so many regulations. You truly are extraordinary. Dark Frost Celestial King raised a brow, appearing very surprised. Ling Han sighed. "You have said these words before as well." The Dark Frost Celestial King humphed, and similarly manipulated the regulations to battle fiercely with Ling Han. His strength was extraordinary, and Ling Han was completely incapable of suppressing him. He could only exhaust his power completely first, and only then could he kill him. But after fighting for a while, the Dark Frost Celestial King could not conceal his shock once again. The battle prowess of a pseudo-celestial king can actually reach such levels. You must have obtained some supreme inheritance. His expression was completely moved.
He wanted nothing more than for his main body to immediately charge over, and snatch all the secrets that belonged to Ling Han.
Ling Han nodded. "This reaction is a new one. I anticipate that you would have other different reactions the next time, when I uproot your third base." "Arrogance!" The Dark Frost Celestial King smirked coldly, with boundless wild waves unfurling behind him and striking out at Ling Han.
Every drop of liquid had condensed the regulations of the Great Tao, and it was guaranteed that an ascending origin tier would immediately perish once hit.
Ling Han was naturally unafraid.
He, too, channeled the regulations of water, turning it into a colossal sword that slashed out at the mad wave.
Boom, the mad wave was split apart forcefully, and Ling Han burst through aggressively, blasting the Dark Frost Celestial King. The Dark Frost Celestial King was astounded. How could it be that this brat seemed like he knew him like the back of his hand? No matter what move he used, the latter could immediately choose a tactic to deal with it.
It was like he had known him for tens of billions of years, possessing a very clear, thorough understanding about him. He naturally would not know that Ling Han had already battled a very long time with his first sliver of divine sense, so he was naturally very familiar with him by now.
But to him, Ling Han was completely unfamiliar, so their positions were completely unequal. The two of them fought fiercely, and the Dark Frost Celestial King gradually fell into a disadvantage. His every move was targeted by Ling Han, and no matter what he did, he could not reverse his progress into defeat. The more the Dark Frost Celestial King fought, the more stunned he was. It really seemed like Ling Han had studied him thoroughly. Whatever his reaction, Ling Han had anticipated it. He now thought back to Ling Han's previous words. Could it be that the latter really had uprooted one of his bases? No, he had to return to the main body. This brat was too freakish, and had great secrets.
Who knew? Maybe the value of those secrets surpassed the value of the treasure trove hidden in the heart of the ruins.
When this thought arose, he immediately turned, planning to flee. He was just a sliver of divine sense, and could come and go as he pleased. Ling Han laughed. He had led the other party into this trap, so how could he possibly allow the Dark Frost Celestial King to run?
He had already laid down an inescapable net around his mind. If the Dark Frost Celestial King had started to escape immediately after he had entered, Ling Han really would not have completely laid out the net yet, and could not have stopped him. But if the Dark Frost Celestial King still wanted to flee after such a long time of fighting, it was already an impossible feat. After about 100 exchanges, Ling Han shattered this sliver of divine sense,
and laid down his own spiritual mark. Instantly, the Black Tower shook slightly, as expected. Coincidentally, just as he completed this action, a peculiar light shot down from above, and fragrance wafted through the air. In the heart of the ruins, the Dark Frost Celestial King stiffened again, and was almost sent flying by a vine.
Brother Dark Frost, what's wrong with you again?
The third Heaven Celestial King beside him frowned.
Was this ally really all that dependable?
Another of my bases have been occupied, the Dark Frost Celestial King replied, his expression dark. The Celestial King beside him was surprised. Could it be that someone was purposely targeting him? To actually uproot two of the Dark Frost Celestial King's bases in a row, was this a provocation? After taking this precious tower down, I will definitely charge back, the Dark Frost Celestial King declared coldly, and humphed.
He vented the fury he felt on that extremely powerful vine in front of him.
Boom, an icy chill spread out. His battle prowess was incredibly terrifying. Ling Han and the others absorbed the benefits of the peculiar light and peculiar fragrance. With the resonance of 3 structures, the boost of the benefits was around 60%. Even if there were only 30 minutes, using time acceleration effects, their progress was still extremely shocking. Of course, Yi was not included. He did not have a physique of time. Cultivating now really had very great benefits to forming a celestial seed.
Ling Han had a feeling that if he cultivated a few more 100 times like this, there would be completely no need for him to contend for that perfect celestial seed.
His own celestial seed was definitely capable of becoming flawless and perfect. There may be treasures hidden here that would allow the Black Tower to recover. If I only possess the strength that I have now, it is completely inadequate in a battle against a third Heaven Celestial King. I have to become a Celestial King. Just give me some more time. Ling Han did not want to waste time.
After he had completed cultivation, he left Yi behind to guard this tower while he brought the 3 women with him, and they continued onwards, trying to conquer a new base once every 3 days.
Of course, these bases would definitely all be the Dark Frost Celestial King's bases. If the Dark Frost Celestial King knew this, he would definitely fly into a rage. Just how much effort had he exerted when he had conquered these bases?
Not only did he have to contend with others, clearing the plants that had nested here caused him to expend great effort. It could be said that everything had been obtained at the expense of blood.
Ling Han and his group soon found the next structure.
There was no need for questions. The Celestial King that had guarded that other palace was here presently.
2 great Celestial Kings blocked the entrance, wanting to stop Ling Han and the others. This naturally was pointless effort. Very quickly, Ling Han and his group broke through their defenses. It was the same routine when he erased the Dark Frost Celestial King's divine sense. This Celestial King was initially very arrogant, but as they fought, he would discover that the situation was turning worse, and wanted to flee. In the end, it was naturally impossible that he could succeed, and he would be forcefully destroyed by Ling Han. This time, Ling Han and his group slowed their progress, waiting for Yan Xianlu and the others to rush over from the front. They waited 11 days. When Yan Xianlu and the others arrived, Ling Han shockingly discovered that their party had actually strengthened many times over. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.